What do you propose, Bob?
When in doubt, C4.
Well, hey there, campers. It's your favorite neighborhood Star Wars geeky penguin Bob here. And we're back again for the Film Threat special of Star Wars on Trial by Chris Gore on Film Threat. This is the rewatch and so forth of each one of the court sessions that they went through to put Disney Lucasfilm Star Wars on trial. And we are on day 5, our 5th week of this, and we are on count 4, which is the introduction of current day politics. Hey, Tracy, and I'm glad you can hear me. I double check everything now before I start, especially after all the technical problems I had for the last couple of days with Windows doing an update and totally taking down my streaming PC. I finally put it all back together, and we are so far so good. And I tested it last night. I am noticing that there is a little bit of network lag right now on YouTube side of things, from what I can tell. But it looks like maybe it's evened out, because I was dropping frames there for a little bit. But nevertheless, it wouldn't be a normal Penguin Thoughts if we didn't have some type of technical problems, right? Yeah, exactly. Don't want to miss out on Penguin Thoughts. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? We got another about 2-hour video to watch through this. And, of course, we skipped through some of the super chat part and so forth. And I've got my profanity filter up and running. And we'll see how things go today and get into it and find out what's going on today with things. Okay. So let's just go ahead and start watching. And there's Alan Ng, special counsel.
All rise.
Oh, we're
You may be
rising.
seated.
And then we're allowed to be seated.
Continuing now with the
Judge Gore.
proceedings. Lucasfilm Disney on trial for the murder of the Star Wars franchise. Today we will be discussing count number 4. Could you read the charges, Mr. Ng?
Yes. Count number 4. The Film Threat jury, on behalf of the citizens of the Star Wars fandom, charges Lucasfilm Disney with the offense of malicious introduction of current-day politics on or about the 30th day of October 2020. Lucasfilm Disney did maliciously introduce
2012.
current-day politics into what should have been timeless storytelling and threatened audiences with accusations of racism when they did not respond positively to the messaging being forced upon them. That is count number 4.
And that is what we will be discussing today. The prosecution and defense are here. I do want to speak specifically to members of the jury, those of you that are viewing
That's us.
this on YouTube. There has been a video of myself that has resurfaced for more than 20 years ago.
Really?
A video of reviews, film reviews I have done. That should not impact this trial in any way. You are to ignore the recently resurfaced video of myself. And with that, we will continue. Members of the jury,
Sure
court
thing,
is now in session.
Honorable Judge Gore. Bad mouse. Oh, I gotta mute the sound on that. Matter of fact, let's just skip ahead from it. Okay, there we go. Case number 1138, fans versus for the murder of the Star Trek franchise. Oh, Mr. Blackwood's back.
And now we continue with count number 4. I'd like to introduce our court sketch artist, Mr. Todd Blackwood. He will be providing sketches today of those appearing for the prosecution, the defense, and also illustrating things which will be discussed on today's proceedings. Mr.
And
Blackwood,
just a reminder,
you can follow him on
the links to
Blackwood
his
PDX
website,
on
as well as the
Instagram.
link to this
Visit his
video is in the
website,
description,
Blackwood
as well as a link to the Film Threat
PDX.
YouTube channel,
And now
where this comes from.
let's continue.
Your Honor, I would once again
Yeah.
like you to instruct the audience to smash that like button and hit subscribe on YouTube, as well as on our Rumble channel, where there are almost over 10 people watching us.
Those 10 people should smash the Rumble like button, whatever they do on Rumble. Let's get started today.
Malicious introduction of current day politics.
For the prosecution, we have Mr. From Popcast guy. Should I refer to you as Mr. Brian?
Mr. Brian's fine, Your Honor.
Mr. Brian. We
This is
also
the
have
other guy
a
from Popcast.
Mr. Cannell
Ryan
from
Cannell.
RK Outpost.
Respectfully, Your Honor, it's pronounced Kinnell. Mr.
Kinnell.
RK Outpost. Yes, Your Honor. It's a pleasure to be with you and this incredible jury this morning. I see them. They're ready to go. They're ready to rock and roll. I know they're really familiar with all this
Wow.
stuff. This is kind of a formality, but we got to present the evidence, and I'm glad to see the jury here today.
Well, Mr. Kinnell, I'll say I am well familiar with your channel. It is
Yeah,
the
so am
channel
I.
where nearly every other thumbnail says we're fucked. Now,
Oh, I didn't
that
catch
kind
that.
of language may be used in a fit of passion. I will allow it in this courtroom to for Mr. Kinnell. I will allow passionate, flowery language when we get to the debate phase, and we have a star defense team. Let's introduce them. Dr. Gordo, PhD for the defense, is back, is returning. He's our first.
I think he was here before.
Member to court. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Cool. And Mr. Kevin Rubio is also here for the defense. Mr. Rubio, thank you for joining us in court today.
Good morning, Your Honor.
We will start with the prosecution. Please, if you're presenting evidence, you may share screen, and you may begin your argument for count number 4. And what we'll do also is you'll have time to present your argument, approximately 20 to 30 minutes. The defense may cross-examine and ask questions. And then we will switch to the defense argument and proceed in a similar fashion. There will be in the middle, there will be a brief
If it gets really
break
racy
for all of us
during
to,
the debate section with
grab another
all
beverage
the
or
profanity stuff and
use
the filter doesn't pick it up,
So
I may skip
count
through
number
some of it.
4, malicious introduction of current day politics.
Let's hope that doesn't
Prosecution,
happen.
who will be making the argument first?
I will.
I will, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, you'll have to decide between
No,
Brian
I'm
and
sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Mr. Kinnell will go.
Just
Mr.
give you a
Kinnell will
heads
begin.
up.
Mr. Kinnell,
Because I do know he can get rather.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are gathered here
Kelsey,
today
yeah,
to talk
Potato
about
Kennedy.
the death of
that
Star
we
Wars.
accept,
And at this
Potato
point in
Kennedy.
time, when you look across everything, when you look at the ratings, when you look at the landscape, when you look at the fan reaction, and the lack of excitement, the lack of anticipation, all the failures that Disney Star Wars has had over the past 11 years, it is undeniable at this point that it's dead. The question is, was it murder? Was it manslaughter? Well, I'm here to show you the indisputable evidence that this was in fact murder. Now, regardless of whether you may or may like a character or a movie or, oh, this did well in the box office, this didn't do well in the box office. When you look at the way that Lucasfilm went about this, when you look at some of these people, whether it's Kathleen, whether it's Dave Filoni, when you look at some of the reactions that they've had, I am going to show you from the very beginning, this was always the intention. Let me read the charges just to remind the jury. Count 4. The film threat jury, on behalf of the citizens of Star Wars fandom, charges Lucasfilm Disney with the offense of malicious introduction of current day politics. On or about the 30th day of October 2012, Lucasfilm and Disney, Lucasfilm or Disney, did maliciously introduce current day politics into what should have been timeless storytelling and threatened audiences with accusations of racism when they did not respond positively to the message being forced upon them.
Yeah.
I feel very honored to be here for count 4 because, quite frankly, I think it is going to be obvious to everyone that count 4 that Disney and Lucasfilm are absolutely guilty.
Every time you hear
But
Potato
we are
Kennedy
going to
drink
do
some
our
water,
due diligence, and we're going to
well, I'm
show
not
you
drinking
exactly
water, but I'm
that.
drinking iced coffee.
When we're
Yeah, I
talking
can
about
definitely do that.
current day politics, everyone understands what that means. We're talking
Like I
about
really got to
identity
twist my arm to sip
We're talking
some
about
iced
the
coffee.
culture war. We're talking about all these things. There's no doubt that over the course of history, over decades and decades, films
Good
have been
idea, though.
inspired by what's going on during the day, or some sort of, maybe there's some political lean to it, maybe some World War II inspiration for this or that. But it's very different than what we're seeing today with the introduction of this modern feminism at each and every opportunity, with the forced diversity and inclusion of characters because they're a minority, and then using these characters as a shield when they know inevitably that thing fails. And of course, the not so secret gay agenda. It is almost Pride Month, Your Honor, so I'm glad we can get this out of the way the day before Pride Month, so we didn't have to have a film threat rainbow logo.
Yeah, this was back
Nevertheless,
like in
let's
May,
get
I
into
think.
these things. I am sharing my screen right now. I do have a Google Doc. We are well prepared for this, for the prosecution. We knew that it was easily in the bag, but at the same time, we have to do all this work. First thing I want to talk about is this push for strong female characters and the feminist agenda that Lucasfilm clearly has. From the very beginning, this was some of the things we were hearing. Lucasfilm's force reveals an executive team more than 50% female. You have a balance of men and women. There are all sorts of things that enter the discussion. Now, if you read the New York Times article on this, it was introducing the women who run Star Wars. And that clearly was the intention. We have right here back in 2015 speaking about this. And if it was just, hey, we happen to hire 50% women, it is what it is, that's one thing. But that was clearly not the case. Take a listen.
You're doing today, not only hiring women at Lucasfilm,
It's potato,
but
Kennedy.
also in producing the new Star Wars episode, what you've done to instill more.
Well, one of the
characters.
things, I mean, the fact that the company was bought by the Walt Disney Company has been amazing because they very much support the fact that we are trying to grow in the workforce, a number of women in executive positions and in all positions inside the company, and with the movies that we're making and with the protagonists that we're putting in the stories. So I got a huge...
I just paused that really quickly. It was not, hey, let's hire the right people for the job. Let's hire the most talented people, the ones that are best, that are most well-equipped to run this franchise and continue the legacy that George Lucas left. No, we specifically want to hire women. And then she brags about, 50%, over 50% of the people working on this movie being women. But that is not it, ladies and gentlemen. We have more from this very same interview.
But what role did you play in also helping to shape the new female lead character in the new movie?
It's one of the first things JJ and I talked about and that we talked to Alan Horn about. It was a very early decision and a choice and something that we worked a long time developing.
Now, I will ask you, is there anything wrong with the female lead? Of course there's not. Is there anything wrong with strong female characters? Of course not. We've had those in Star Wars since literally 1977. But it's interesting,
Star Wars
isn't it, that
wouldn't be
the
anything
first
without Leia.
thing her and J.J. Abrams discussed was having a strong female protagonist.
I think the interesting path we've had is the conversation that took place around consumer products, because there were a lot of companies that were in place who, frankly, didn't initially feel that Star Wars was for girls. And when you have a company...
Star Wars fans out here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Notice the 5 people that clapped at that. Very impressive.
And when you have a company situation where between Lucasfilm and Disney, we were all looking at this situation and saying, no, with Star Wars, we have to change this. We have to make sure that we create products that are, in a sense, appealing to both boys and girls. What's wrong with that? I mean,
now keep in mind, we're parsing these words here. What she says is that we need to change it. We need to change what Star Wars is. It's always been a male-dominated brand in terms of the consumer, but we need to change it. Now, what she says there is we need to do things for both sides equally. But then, right on the other hand, he will say something like this. Lucasfilm President Kennedy says she doesn't feel the need to cater to male Star Wars fans, despite admittedly catering to female fans, right? Quote, I have a responsibility to the company that I work with. I don't feel I have a responsibility to cater in some way to those particular fans. I would never just seize on saying, well, this is a franchise that's appealed primarily to men for many, many years, and therefore I owe men something. You can already see where the agenda was and what was happening, but it doesn't just stop at Kathleen Kennedy.
Well, don't get me started on the fact that she's not even catering to Penguin
Dave Filoni,
fans.
I know a lot of people love Dave Filoni. This is Dave Filoni at a women's conference, I believe in 2016. I believe this is the date. I could be fact checked that on. I could be fact checked on that, Your Honor. But I believe it's from 2016. I want you to listen to Dave Filoni and what he says about what their agenda is for more female representation.
This is what we tried to do with the Star Wars saga. Now we've tried to create more female characters who can represent so many things, because what we're trying to do isn't just create one type of character. We're trying to create a diverse range of characters, especially female characters that are strong, that are independent. When you look at Rey on The Force Awakens, she's a female lead in a whole new chapter of the Star Wars saga. We haven't done a movie for 10 years. And here comes a Star Wars film, and here comes Rey.
The thought of Darth
Pingus. What is it? Is it Panic in the Streets? Oh my gosh, a female lead in a Star Wars movie. And then the trailer for Rogue One comes out, and it's another female lead. Oh my gosh.
Obi-Wan Kenobi
How
sounds
unfair. We've had probably like 2 million straight film cinematic roles where men have been leads, and now we've done 2 in a row that are women. Well, too bad. Oh well. Maybe there are more coming. I don't know.
Listen to the disdain that Dave Filoni, the supposed savior of Star Wars for some people, listen to the disdain this man has for a fan base that is rightly questioning what's going on when they've been told time and time again that there is an agenda, that they are pushing an agenda. And, that wasn't it. Dave Filoni had a couple more things to say.
Created an environment. But kind of just like Luke, all he did was open that door, right? He just opened that door, let Leia out, and she's went gangbusters. So
this is how Dave Filoni thinks about Luke Skywalker. All he did was open the door for her, and she went gangbusters. That's what he wants to do for female characters.
I just want to be a part at Lucasfilm of opening this door to a new generation of filmmakers, of women that come into Lucasfilm and can be creative.
This is undoubtedly the agenda. If you wanted to talk more about Dave Filoni, and I hope, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hope you're staying with me on this. I hope that I am entertaining you here because, quite frankly, there is a lot to go over. This is important. We have seen the murder of a franchise, and I will not let it go until we present all of this evidence. What about Dave Filoni and this Lucasfilm story group in the Star Wars sequel trilogy? Would it interest you to know that they very intentionally wanted to subvert the patriarchy and instead install a matriarchy in the Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy? Lucasfilm executive director Doug Chiang wondered, since these 3 films are a female-driven story, where's Leia? Pablo Hidalgo. I could imagine her being the one to break through to the villain. Dave Filoni. Oh, I love that. I won't do the Dave Filoni lisp, Your Honor. I will refrain from doing the Dave Filoni lisp and simply present his words. I love, too, I look back on this table, we're presided over by Padme. There's a picture of her there. There's a powerful idea about this matriarchy coming back and subverting what has always been dominantly patriarchal in male heroes. Zeus, Hercules, everything else. The matriarchy coming back and subverting what has been dominantly patriarchal. What else does he say? Well, John Knoll says, I would love it. Maybe Yoda, when he says, no, there is another, maybe Yoda's really talking about what happens with Leia in The Last Jedi. Dave Filoni, I love that. We should shift it. So Leia is the Obi-Wan of this entire trilogy. I don't even think it hurts that she's not primarily that mentor figure because, like John says, the audience expectation is so on Luke. And when that proves not to be true, it's way more powerful. It's dangerous because it makes it so much about the women of Star Wars. Something tells me that's right. There's something happening culturally. You look at birth, regeneration, the world itself needing healing, all of those things emblematic of the mother character in myth. Now, I do have to pull up this article here because it's the only way you can read that text. He went on to say, all these things are emblematic of the mother character in myth. They're all matriarchal things, Mother Earth itself. Global warming is a hot topic. George Lucas was always good at tapping into what's happening in culture, and he hits us with it. The idea that we have Leia, a mother character who needs healing in her own right, that's something we can go into in a deeper way. You start to see the strategy of subverting Luke Skywalker, one of the most incredible characters in all of fiction, with the matriarchy. And if you thought it was slowing down anytime soon, it's not. Expect more female-driven Star Wars stories. And as you look at the landscape, look at everything we've seen. Obviously, the sequel is led by Rey. Obviously, Jyn Erso, the lead in Rogue One. But what do we have now? Mando Season 3 clearly is showing us that the same thing's happening for that series. Has there been a single heroic male character that Disney has actually presented to us? Has there been a single one that they've created and presented? Or has it all been focused on women in large part? Guess you can throw Cassian Andor in there if you want to count that. But I think it's overwhelmingly obvious what's happening.
Yeah, the one Star Wars show that felt like Star Wars that hardly nobody watched.
We have a couple other things to talk about. Using minority casting as a shield and blaming fans. We saw what happened when, you had backlash against a character that no one liked and someone like Kelly Marie Tran. The media ran cover, said, oh, these racists just don't like this character. We saw the same thing with John Boyega when he was introduced as a stormtrooper. They said, oh, the fans are just so racist. The racist backlash against a black stormtrooper, when in reality, as any Star Wars fan knows, and as so many people here in the jury can attest, it wasn't that people had a problem with a black casting. It was because there were a lot of people who were a little bit ignorant of the fact that at this point in time, stormtroopers were not clones. That was one of the reasons people had a problem with. That's one of the reasons they were questioning these things. Which, just as we always see with Disney, that is the way they go with this victimhood route. But I do want to talk about
Stormtroopers were
and the
conscripted
things that she
into like
has
a
said.
military.
Explains importance of diversity in Rogue One and all of Star Wars. Quote from Kathleen. I think that diversity is incredibly important to Star Wars. I think it's more important to the film industry in general. I think having casts that represent the world today and having characters that people can relate to all over the world. This is very much a global industry. Film means something to people all over the world. Let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, was Star Wars a global brand before 2011? Did people all over the world of every single gender, of every single race, of every single ethnicity, of every single religion, were there some people everywhere that loved Star Wars? There certainly was. But what they have done now is this forced inclusion and forced diversity, pushing characters that are meaningless, simply hiding them because they have some sort of,
it was a global phenomenon when it hit theaters.
And we even saw that with
back
the High
in
Republic.
'77.
When the High Republic was introduced, what were their priorities? Not once, but twice during the High Republic, one of Kathleen's pet projects to expand the legacy of Star Wars. What did we see? Fiction, diversity. They wanted diversity in their fiction, and they also wanted diversity in Star Wars. Dinosaurs as well. We won't get into that on this session, if it may please the court. However, you can see what they do when they have someone that they shove into a story where they don't belong, such as the character of Reva in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Completely unnecessary, completely not needed, and also not a good performance, not a good story. Poorly written, poor dialogue, everything. A lot of backlash against this character. What does Star Wars, what does Lucasfilm do? They try to gaslight everyone, and they use their minorities as a shield. Star Wars defends Obi-Wan Kenobi Star Wars defends Obi-Wan Kenobi star Moses Ingram from vile
I'm
online
not really
attacks.
sure what you're saying,
Don't
but okay.
choose to be racist. This is put out there by the official Star Wars account, by just about anyone and everyone you could possibly imagine. But the reality is, Lucasfilm planned this. Lucasfilm, months before, had told Moses Ingram exactly that. Lucasfilm warned Moses Ingram about racist Star Wars trolls harassment likely will happen. That's funny. Did they say the same thing to Donald Glover? Did they say the same thing to Forrest Whitaker? Did they say the same thing to these characters who overall, even if they weren't necessarily well received, no one really had an issue with the character themselves? The answer obviously is no.
I liked Forrest
The reason there's
Whitaker
a
in
backlash for some of these
Saga era.
characters because
He
they are
wasn't bad.
poorly written characters. They're created with a specific agenda in mind. That's why Lucasfilm warned Moses Ingram, so they could be ready to fall back on this failure. It is sad and it is pathetic, but this is Disney Star Wars. And last, ladies and gentlemen, you've been very patient. You've been patient with me. Thank you to the prosecution, the defense, and the court, and of course, the wonderful jury. I do want to get into one of the other big things that I think encompasses this malicious push for identity politics, and undoubtedly that is pushing for LGBTQ plus representation at each and every turn. Now, before Disney bought Star Wars, there was gay representation in Star Wars. Across all the Star Wars expanded universe, there were several characters that were gay or bisexual, all these things. That wasn't the focus of the story. It wasn't celebrated because they were simply just a part of the story. However, that's not the case when it comes to Disney. And I did name these exhibits, Your Honor. I wanted to be organized, so we'll start pulling these up because I didn't have these up already. Let's look at Exhibit K, shall we? This is what we started looking at when it came to Disney Star Wars, the celebration of people's sexuality. When it comes to Pride Month, special Star Wars covers on Pride Month. Lucasfilm and Marvel teamed up to celebrate Pride Month, a time dedicated to uplifting, honoring, and supporting the LGBTQIA community. Look at all of this stuff. Look at all these new characters that we have. And some old characters. We're going to get to the old characters that have been changed maliciously into being gay or bi or something like that. Look at the pandering. Look at what they're doing. This is Star Wars, and it's not just 1 year. We can go all the way back to 2021. We can check 2021 as well. Same thing. You have all these characters that are pansexual, non-binary, transgender, including a certain someone. And that's what I want to get into next. It would be one thing to create all these new characters and just say, well, that's that. We have these new characters that are all
Parent,
gay, and we should really
clarifying.
celebrate that.
Now I understand what you mean.
However, when it comes to pre-existing characters, that is something completely different. I think we all remember this back in 2018. Solo screenwriter says Lando's sexuality is fluid, wants more LGBTQ characters in Star Wars. We all know what Jonathan Kasdan said. And a lot of people said, oh, wow, look, they set up this romance between Lando and a droid. Degenerate, disgusting, but it didn't play out on screen. So maybe it's not official. Maybe it's just something. Oh, we all knew what they were trying to tell us. Well, then what did we have? We had in that very same comic the justification, the acknowledgement. Lando is indeed part of the LGBTQ community. The P that goes in there. I guess we don't want Disney to introduce P's into that name because I think we all know what that means when it comes to Disney. But what about other characters? What about the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi in a standalone book written by an activist where they show that he has bisexual thoughts and is thinking about men romantically? This is what they're doing to the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi. What about Luke Skywalker? As much as they have destroyed Luke Skywalker's legacy, everything, now they have short stories written right within the events of Empire Strikes Back, where he's attracted to men. They're making Luke Skywalker gay. That's what they're doing. That's what Disney is doing. If you want to pretend like this isn't malicious, I don't know what to tell you. And then even in their hiring practices, when they go and hire someone for the new female-led queer Star Wars story, who is it? It's Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, Leslie Headland, who admittedly says this: Star Wars The Acolyte will reflect showrunner's own queer identity. And we do have the quotes here. In the same way the original Star Wars film is about a young man living in Modesto, California, who doesn't want to take over his dad's hardware store.
Changing it for the agenda,
There's
for
just
their
no
politics.
way me being a queer woman is not going to be reflected in my work. She went on to explain how storytelling is often an extension of the storyteller, reflecting key aspects. So as a result, she believes her queerness will come through in the show, even if it happens to be on a subconscious level. And of course, it ultimately ends up, this is the reality, at the last Disney Star Wars celebration. They have a drag panel open for all ages, of course, at Disney Star Wars Celebration. And who endorses this? Of course, it's Star Wars themselves. We can't wait to see it. The Star Wars official social media account.
Wow.
Now this account no longer exists, but I can
didn't know
guarantee you, Your Honor, that it was in reply to that drag message. As we look across the landscape, all these things that have happened, everything that has happened with Lucasfilm, everything that's happened with Disney in the past 11 years, even if you might like some of their content, even if you appreciate some of their content, there can be no doubt. There is indisputable evidence, as I have just presented, that it was always a plan.
Yeah, that's the problem. They don't want to do that because nobody will go see that. That's why they want to
change Star Wars from what it was into
IPs.
something else. And as a result, so many Star Wars fans have walked
because
away
they know
from
inherently
this
nobody
product.
wants to
This
sit
was
there and
malicious.
listen to
This was introducing modern
a
day
political
politics
message
into Star Wars
being pushed
and as
upon
a
you.
result, they killed it. Thank you, Your Honor. I rest.
Mr. Kinnell,
They are.
thank you for your
Tracy, I agree,
presentation.
100%.
as they say, the
Every single
is
every single
on fire.
industry, even in the
You've
gaming
used up
industry
most of your
now, I'm
time.
seeing it.
Mr. Bryan, do you have anything to add to what Mr. Kinnell has
Yes,
presented?
sir. First off, thank you, Mr. Kinnell. That was really, really informative. Let me just.
There's a new game that's out. I even made a video on it about controversy of a game called Starfield, which I originally was interested in eventually playing that game. Wasn't going to toss down $70 for it. That's insane. Especially when I found out, because it's very similar to No Man's Sky, but No Man's Sky is way better in my opinion, because No Man's Sky is just about a good story and about a good game and just immersive details. Well, Starfield actually pushes the pronouns and all that kind of stuff and the woke stuff on you, like in character creation and in the story of the game itself. Like one character being actually a clone of a dude, even though she's female. It's weird. It's permeating everything. Oh, I agree, Tracy, that this is all ushering in the Antichrist. Exactly. See, Perrin, you're giving them way too much credit that they can actually create their own original content. Because even when you look at all these IPs and everything, it's been out. If you take out the politics, what kind of story is it? Not a very good one. I honestly believe a 3-year-old could write better than that. Anyway, let's get back to the trial here. I think we're getting ready to hear from the other prosecutor, Mr. Brian from Popcast.
Just try to put a button on this for you. I'm going to prove here that what Kendall said was not only factual, it was premeditated, and then in canon they followed through with the alleged.
Now, what was the streamer saying, Perrin, about the dialogue on Starfield? I assume they're saying it's good or bad, because a lot of the dialogue that I've seen from other people playing it, it's not all that great. All right, well, I'll wait for you to answer. I'm going to continue playing the video. Ah, okay. Well, I'm afraid to tell you this. That's what streamers do, dude.
Massacre of our favorite franchise. If you look at, hope it's showing. It's not showing, I guess. There he goes. Chris White's, this is before, this is for Rogue One, literally said, "Please note that the Empire is a white supremacist human organization," followed up by the writer, "opposed by a multicultural group led by brave women." So, they're not even trying to hide this. This entire franchise, since it came back, has been led and riddled by fourth wave feminism and all the politics that come with fourth wave feminism. There are zero, count it, zero male leaders on the good guys' side, quote unquote. In fact, even our beloved Mon Calamari, the big swinging fish stick himself, Admiral Akbar, was killed to make way for female leadership. How about this? This, my friend, is called the Mega Class Star Dreadnought. The actual name of this ship is what? The Supremacy. No joke. Not even hiding it. It was destroyed by who? Fourth wave feminist icon herself, the purple-haired, mansplaining Laura Dern. And the entirety of the bad guys are just a bunch of white men. Isn't that something? On top of it, in the very first 15 minutes of The Last Jedi, every one of the male bombers were completely murdered, destroyed for incompetence, leaving behind what? The one multicultural woman left. Well, there's two other men.
Yeah, streaming
in the
while playing
franchise
a
doing
game
great, right? Well, let's look at him real quick.
It's not what you think.
Well,
it
he's
is.
just
It's
a
not
joke.
just actually just playing a game.
Poor Finn didn't even have a
Because then
chance
you
to
don't
do
have
anything
people
special.
watching
He
you,
was
because you gotta
dominated
engage
by
the
side
people
quests
sitting
and
there in
comedy
the
relief.
chat watching you.
Nothing of importance came from this character. How about Poe Dameron? Oh, nope. Poe was completely shut down every single time he tried to save their ass. Literally every single time. This franchise has been riddled with fourth wave feminism from the very beginning, and it was planned. The murder of our favorite Mon Calamari was planned. The murder of our franchise was planned. And I can't put any more information out there that Mr. Kinnell didn't already talk about. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, you're muted.
Hey, RPG.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Bryan. Thank you,
Long
Mr.
time no
Kinnell.
see, dude.
The defense, you may now cross-examine, and then you may make your own presentation. Mr. Rubio, you were objecting. We were near the end. I really wanted to give them an opportunity to complete.
Since you're here,
Now
I'll let you know I may be
may,
streaming
ask
tomorrow night
questions and
on
cross-examine.
YouTube, actually.
Well, first of all, I'd like
because
to
the
give
game
Mr.
I'm going to
Kinnell
play, I'm
an
looking at trying to
opportunity,
possibly
if he
play
needs to,
Star
run to the
Wars
refrigerator for
Knights
more
of the
butter,
Old Republic.
for the jury, and
for Brian to possibly, if he needs a lozenge.
Objection. Speculation, Your Honor. Speculation.
I'm just trying to help here. Gentlemen, the charge isn't murder. The charge is malice.
Yeah, all this, me watching Ahsoka, reviewing it each week, and doing Star Wars on trial and stuff, kind of got me a little bit in a Star Wars mood. And I haven't played, and there's supposed to be a new version of Star Wars KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, remastered. That's supposed to be either coming out or it has already come out, but it's not on PC, I don't believe. I don't know if it is or not. But either way, I decided I wanted to try to see if I could break out my old version of it and play it. I've been a while. Yeah, I'm not doing Subnautica. Sorry, dude. I know you want me to do that, but sorry, not happening. Anyway, let's continue on here. We got to hear from the defense on this.
Can either of you please tell me the definition? Let me help you.
Yeah, please help us out, defense. And actually, we are here for we are on the trial for murder, and the charge is malicious introduction. Yes, sir.
Lucasfilm with the offense of malicious introduction.
Yeah, malicious introduction of current day politics.
Malice, clear, formulated plan to commit an unlawful act or cause harm without legal justification or excuse. In all of your pandering and bravado and so-called evidence, I have yet to see anything that shows somebody actually with intent and with a clearly formulated plan to cause harm to the Star Wars IP. Do you have any evidence of any executive, any producer, any writer who went in and said, I want to basically make this IP less valuable? Everything that you have presented can be attributed to stupidity, perhaps a lack of forethought, perhaps a misunderstanding in the IP. But I have seen nothing that you have presented that shows malice. Do you have any evidence of malice?
I can argue that
the charge.
I can argue that putting down an entire fan base that created the IP in order to lift up a completely new fan base
rewatching this trial
is
Can you show me evidence of that?
I hadn't seen hardly any of it, and I wanted to see both sides of the argument.
Showed you multiple
I already know
evidence,
the verdict.
multiple points where they purposely left behind their original fan base in order to lift up a new fan base, saying, aren't there any more women out there? That is the definition of either incompetence or malice, but I can't believe that Kennedy is incompetent. It has to be an agenda-driven, malicious intent.
But well, I will say this, and let me answer your question, please, counsel. I do appreciate the long, drawn-out narratives before you actually ask your question on rebuttal. We'll have time to present your case, and I look forward to that. This is what I will say. We did present several exhibits, including some where Kathleen specifically stated that we wanted to change this franchise. Star Wars is, I believe, the third largest IP in the world, in history, when they took over. Yet they wanted to make changes to it. They wanted to change all these things associated with it. What I would say to you is that it was clearly intentional to change these things. And did they
Sir, that is conjecture. You have not provided any evidence that it was clearly intentional as a point of malice. She is an executive producer in charge of one of the largest IPs of the Disney Corporation. She is trying to mitigate a loss by doing what she feels is best for that property. Now,
how can you argue that?
Let me ask you a question, Councilman. Please, if you are hoping that we can read the minds of Kathleen Kennedy instead of just what she's actually said and what she's actually done, how are you able to read the mind of Kathleen Kennedy and say that all of these things are just pure intentions on her part?
Because I have 30 years in the entertainment industry.
Okay, so answer me this.
If it's admissible in court, Your Honor.
Hold up. If it's pure intention, then how does she continue to do it? When it fails 3 and 4 times and it's continued across the board, 2023, the statement is still coming out that they're going to abandon their original fan base to continue to promote an agenda that is clearly losing them money. So it has to be intentional.
Brian, will you please show me and evidence of where they are? They specifically said they are abandoning their audience.
Yes, continuing on a path that abandons the original IP in favor of a brand new narrative that pushes forward an agenda that is losing money. Every single movie, every single TV show, every single property. That has to be intentional.
But
or they're just so ignorant
pushing an ideology
that I can't believe it.
I presented to you.
He presented to you multiple locations and multiple times from 2016 all the way to 2023.
Worldwide box office of episode 7, 2.5 billion. Worldwide box office of episode 8, 1.3 billion. Worldwide box office of episode 9, 1.07 billion. Worldwide box office of Rogue One.
Can you repeat The Force Awakens real quick? Can you repeat The Force Awakens?
Highest rated TV show on streaming for Disney Plus, The Mandalorian. I don't see that as an organization that is trying to ruin their IP.
Yeah, objection. That's speculative. You that's one season. List seasons 1 and 3, and additionally add Obi-Wan to that list and Boba Fett, and you're talking about loss leaders at best.
Streaming shows. Was it good? That's up to people to decide.
I'm talking about ratings alone. One season of Mandalorian was ranked.
It's so shocking to me that the thing that they launched Disney Plus with was the highest rated Disney Plus show. This is what I will say. First, I would like you to correct the record. You said that Force Awakens made $2.5 billion. That is simply untrue. It was 2.06. I don't know how you're rounding.
My mistake. I was conflating the box office underneath it, and my poor scribble. It's $2.1 billion according to Box Office Mojo as of today.
Thank you very much for that correction. What I will say is this.
Oh my God, an extra $5 million.
Yeah, well, it's an extra $500 million between friends. I'm sure Solo could have used that, considering Solo lost money. But I'm sure we'll get back to that at some point.
Solo lost money because Solo itself.
Hey, Mr. Rubio, excuse me. I'm trying to answer your question, Mr. Rubio. You will have plenty of time to present your case, but let me answer your question, which is what rebuttal is for. You asked, where's the evidence that they did anything to basically drive their fan base away or something like that? It was something. Your question is something like that?
Malicious intent is the charge.
What I will say is that we just listened to a clip of Kathleen Kennedy. I believe that was Exhibit B of my presentation. Exhibit Bravo showed Kathleen Kennedy talking about how they wanted to change Star Wars and how they wanted to cater to a different type of fan base. And then my very next exhibit, Exhibit C, Exhibit Charlie, showed her speaking about how they didn't want to cater to men. She self-admittedly, in the evidence that I have showed you, says that this was their demographic, this was their fan base, that for all of history, Star Wars has been predominantly male audience. That's not to say females didn't love it, of course. There are tons of female Star Wars fans. I'm explaining, I'm answering the question, so let me please continue. With all due respect, Mr. Rubio. And then in the very next exhibit, we showed that she had no intention of ever catering to that fan base. Now, if you want to say for 11 years that this, because we're here for the murder of Star Wars, by the way, and this specific charge is about malicious intent. If you want to just claim that for 11 years, it's all just been
Episode 4
incompetence
opening weekend,
and
grossed
accidental
11
and everything like that, and you,
advertisement.
with your 30 years of experience
Okay.
in the industry, think that, you know, Kathleen Kennedy's just that
Do you have
incompetent
a
for
web
11
link
years
where you
have
got
just been
that from,
failures,
Baron? I'd like to
then
look at that.
That's an interesting strategy to take, and if I was on your side of the case,
maybe it
that's
breaks
certainly
down
what
all
I
the
would
other
desperately
episodes
try
as
to
well.
do, because the only way that my client could get off on this. But I think that we have done a fairly good job presenting the evidence, even the stuff that you are continuing to ask for. Am I a mind reader? I'm not a mind reader,
Thank you.
sir.
I appreciate it.
Neither are you.
Well, let's excuse me. I want to get control of the courtroom here. You've had time to cross-examine. I want to read some of what the jury is saying right now. We will put up a poll before the end of the show.
I assume that
rating
11
how
million is
well the
probably
defense-
worldwide.
And after the defense presents its case, we'll put up a poll and you can decide who you think made the better argument. What I'd like to do is take a pause and read some super chats from the jury, and then defense, you will have the floor. You'll then have a prosecution will have an opportunity to cross-examine, and then open debate. We're kind of moving. The conversation as it was going was becoming open debate, and we want to get to that. But let me hear what the jury has to say. A Mexican
we're gonna skip
Iron
the
Man
super
for
chat
5 says,
part.
upon guilty verdict, Mexican Iron Bailiff stands
Looks
at the
like we're
ready
getting
to
ready
take
to do a
Lucas'
recess next.
turn.
Yeah, they're doing their recess. So I will. So we've been going for about an hour. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to go take a 4 or 5 minute break myself. I'm going to go get some more iced coffee, and we will be back to continue on rewatching the Star Wars on Trial, count number 4. So I encourage you to get up, stretch, slap your neighbor with a fish, or make a phone call like what Tracy's saying there, or something like that. But I'll be back shortly, about 4 or 5 minutes or so. When I come back, we'll watch what the commercials through the recess are, and we'll go from there. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, we're back. And hopefully you had the opportunity to go to the little penguin's room, maybe, or slap your neighbor with a fish, or grab you something to drink like I did. I got me some more iced coffee, which is always a good thing for this little penguin. And we'll dive in here and start watching again. And thanks again for that link, Perrin. I'll take a look at it here in a minute. You found the wiki? Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and continue watching here. Is that all I was doing? Playing that logo? Normally plays like
Was it very like patriarchal and clothes make the man toxic? Yes, yes. Just because you're a stormtrooper in the Empire doesn't mean you can't look fabulous. The first order of business must be uniform, and uniform doesn't mean it all needs to look the same. Accessorize. Long live the matriarchy.
Accessorize.
It was a quiet Wednesday, that May 25. Quiet, that is. Until Star Wars exploded onto the silver screen and changed the course of movie making forever. We all know that story. But fast forward 35 years, when a real empire consumed it, changed it, broke it, woke it. The magic is gone. The myth is gone.
911 operator, what's your emergency? Oh my god, they killed Star Wars!
The new overlords ignored most everything that made it great. They insulted the fans, betrayed the fans, ignored the fans, ignored the canon, and they even ignored serious, coherent story making. And just how the we come to this.
Yeah, it's gotta be
Dateline Film Threat investigates inflation and holds critics' court on the dark side of the Star Wars.
The problem is that making film is an art. Selling film is a business.
Right.
The trouble is that they don't know how to sell films. As a result, they try to make you make films that people will go to without them having to be sold, which is the real key to the problem. And if they weren't so backward and, you know, I mean, they just, if they can't put a film in a theater,
Boy, he looks so young there,
and have people rush to the door, they're not interested.
When I took over the licensing, I simply said, I'm going to be able to make T-shirts, I'm going to be able to make posters, and I'm going to be able to sell this movie, even though the studio won't.
Continuing with the proceedings.
Okay, we're back.
The defense is up for discussion of count 4. On behalf of the defense, Dr. Gordo or Mr. Rubio, who would like to begin?
I'll be going first, Your Honor. Before I proceed, I want to voice two concerns. One, the video that you just played, I believe, greatly hampers the ability for the defense to receive a fair and unbiased trial by jury. Also, I feel that the lack of voir dire in any of these cases has hampered the ability of not only the defense, but also...
Let me hide chat. I don't want to see chat replay. I thought I hid that already. But apparently opened back up again. Okay, there we go.
So the prosecution in ensuring that we have an impartial jury.
I would then instruct the jury to ignore any of the videos played during these proceedings. But before you, and thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Rubio. That is a fair comment to make. I'd like to, just before you begin, Mr. Blackwood has been working furiously.
Oh,
and,
yeah. I like this
perhaps
stuff.
he could show us some of the courtroom
And it's
sketches for
Potato
today's
Kennedy.
proceeding. That is a sketch of Ms. Kennedy.
Ms. Potato Kennedy.
Are there any other sketches you've been working on you could show us here? We've got, this looks like, there you are. Okay, well, that is
That got
my
Chris
face
Gore?
reflected
Yeah.
In,
And the nice and shiny.
in one of the characters from the beloved The Force Awakens. Anything else you'd like to show us, Mr. Blackwood? Yes, one more. Yeah, here we go. And there you are. Okay. And that is Rey holding a rainbow lightsaber and says, I can see
weird.
myself. Perhaps something for a
Look at her forehead.
You could caption this type of
That's
contest.
crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwood, for your
I love
attendance
his
today
stuff.
and for your sketches. And thank you, Mr. Rubio, also for pointing out some very helpful information. And I just hope that the jury will, again, not rush to judgment, but keep an open mind. Mr. Rubio, you have the floor. And again, same format, approximately 20 to 30 minutes to present for you and Dr. Gordo, cross-examination, then open debate. You may proceed, sir. You may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Once again, to state the charge is Lucasfilm Disney with offense of the malicious introduction of current day politics on or about the 30th of October, 2012. Lucasfilm Disney did maliciously introduce current day politics into what should have been a timeless storytelling and threaten audiences with accusations of racism when they did not respond positively to the messages being forced upon them. As everybody knows, Star Wars has had a history of introducing current day politics from the very beginning. Star Wars first trilogy was a Vietnam allegory, to which we will show you with my defense co-counsel will show you. When we get to the second trilogy, it is an indictment on the rise of fascism and the chipping away of freedoms, which was mainly George's way of getting back at the Reagan era when Ronald Reagan adopted his IP, Star Wars, to promote his weapons platform. And in turn, George turned around and named a character after him, although he switched the name around. Instead of Reagan, it was Gun Ray. And with today's current politics being that of gender and inclusion, it was only you would consider, I don't want to say natural, but it was within the thinking of the time to include as many different races as possible, so that one could garner a bigger and wider audience, which the first film proved out. It is an outlier of Star Wars films. It grossed, again, $2.1 billion. But as far as a female lead, the original Star Wars, in several drafts going back and forth between 1974 and 1976.
Welcome back,
switched
Tracy.
up the leads between Luke and Leia, being the protagonist, or the farm boy, as to who gets rescued and who doesn't get rescued. When George was initially conceiving the next three
cool.
trilogy pieces, which were abandoned by Disney, a female lead was at the head of the story. This can be found.
Cool. I'm glad I put it on the closed caption.
The Force Awakens.
I do it because
so
I can also pick up on what
this
Troy's
was not
saying, plus the
malice. This was
profanity as
simply
well, being filtered out
following what they
as best
thought
I
was
can.
going to
But it also helps in the fact that
be best for the brand and for the franchise.
if you're not able
and
to
bring
actually
in
pay
as
attention
many
and listen,
people
you
as
can actually just sit
possible.
here and read what's going on.
To the charge of racism, unfortunately, this is the case of an internet bubble and a confirmation bias, where somebody hears something that gets picked up. The metrics of everybody's individual computer just reinforces it, and everybody thinks that Disney is a racist. There are many, many, many good people in this world. And as I'm sure we can count those here among the court as one of them. Fortunately, there are also a lot of ugly people in this world, and the ugliest, sadly, sometimes label themselves as Star Wars fans, and they are racist. When the first
cool
trailer for
well, I'm
Star
glad he
Wars
shared
The
all that
Force
stuff.
Awakens dropped, and the first image
Especially
was
what
of John
God's doing.
Boyega as a black stormtrooper, heaven forbid. Well, that caused and I'm going to muck up his name, Henrik Palmgren, to launch the Star Wars 7 boycott Star Wars 7 movement. An interview conducted by Freeman TV on December 17th, 2015, he charges J.J. Abrams with white genocide, also claiming that Abrams is involved with the social engineering program of the CIA. Also
Really?
charges that the
Of the
good guys
CIA?
are all of ethnic origin, which was like Daisy Ridley.
Weird.
That Lupita Nyong'o, who was playing an alien, by the way, and was an Academy Award-winning actress at the time. He also adds that all the white guys were evil. He had to put in Max von Sydow because he didn't have enough white guys. And then apparently he didn't do his homework because Andy Serkis is Armenian, which, fun fact, he can trace his family back to the Caucasus region, which makes him in Star Wars the only true Caucasian. Boyega was then subjected to endless DMs and racial slurs, most of which, because of time, have been erased from the site. But I can assure you
I will say
that
this
the
much.
N-word
I don't like the
was
way John
in high
Boyega was
use.
treated with all this.
When we get to Kelly Marie Tran, the bullying and racist
like
remarks were so
the Star
bad
Wars
that they
poster
drove
for
her
Force
off the
Awakens.
internet.
He
Cite
was
many examples, but I'm going to try to keep it.
his picture was
to what
actually
was the most
reduced or even
pertinent.
removed,
It was
depending on
her
what country it
Wikipedia
was going
page
to for
that
promotion.
got vandalized. And the
It
description
just-
of her character was, and I
That's
quote,
just wrong, in my opinion.
Ching Chong Wing
He's either in the movie or he's not.
Dumb ass.
Why
I'm
hide
not
it?
going to use this word, F word, C word. Disney made and is stupid, autistic love interest for Finn. She better die in a coma because she's such a dumb ass. Huffington Post, 12/24/2017. Through all of this, Disney never had an official response, nor did Lucasfilm. An official response came
Mr.
only,
Rubio's giving
after
interesting
the release
information,
of the
but
first
I'm
episode
having a hard time
of,
following where his logic
Obi-Wan
is going.
Kenobi. It was
His
after
argument.
that that Moses Ingram went on her Instagram and did a roughly 20-minute video showcasing all of the racial slurs, threats, death threats, and DMs that she received. The remarks included, and again, Your Honor,
truth
I'm
comes
going
out when you
to
watch the film, exactly.
try to censor this for the court. Your days are numbered. You are not the first N-word in the Star Wars universe, fool. Another remark, you suck, loser. Another remark, you are a diversity hire and you won't be loved or remembered for the rest for this acting role. It was only at this point that executive producer Ewan McGregor came on as both the star and executive producer to defend her in a video. After that video dropped, Lucasfilm and Star Wars released.
It's funny, Tracy, you said that, and I was thinking the same thing. It's like, this is why I'm having a hard time following his logical defense here. It just seems like he's rambling. And now some of the information, like I said, is pretty interesting. Comments and so forth, but it's like, how is it sharing the ugly backlash of fans or any of that a defense against the prosecution's case? Because the prosecution's actually provided like documents and so forth like that. And I'm hoping that his cohort, Dr. What's his name? Dr. Gordo, I think it is, something like that. He was on here before, and he, last time, if I remember correctly, if I'm thinking of the right person, he had very logical, laid out arguments. So I'm hoping maybe he'll make a little bit more sense. This guy just seems like he's not necessarily bad, but just kind of all over the place.
Their one and only official tweet in the matter of racism. And my co-counsel
looking at
will
the
be sharing all of those with you.
Comments from either side
I
and
yield
from
the rest
Disney
of my time to my
executives
co-counsel.
is all very subjective.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
not
Rubio.
objective.
Dr.
And
Gordo,
when you're making a
you
logical
are
argument,
front
it
and
needs to
center.
be objective.
After your presentation, the prosecution may cross-examine, and then we move to open debate. Dr. Gordo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, I would actually like to ask some clarifying questions of the prosecution. Would that be acceptable at this time? I ask a question, get an answer, ask a new question, get an answer?
Well,
what your defense is for.
Yeah, that's what you're. Yeah, you have to present your evidence. You have to present your evidence. If you'd like to move to open debate, we can move to open debate, and you can. But the prosecution will have an opportunity to cross-examine you, and your argument. If you're saying you don't, we're here to hear your argument, and then you're also here to defend it.
Okay. In that case, Kevin, why don't we go ahead with our 3 exhibits, and then we can use that as a bridge to open debate.
Sure.
Now, see, he's got exhibits. The other guy was just kind of reading the stuff off.
Should I share the screen, or is it
Yes.
easier for Alan to do it?
Please share screen with what you'd like to show.
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen, and then I'll post it on this.
I remember him because he's the guy that's got the Star Wars posters in the back, which is really kind of cool. It's like my favorite there. Empire Strikes Back is right there. Oh,
It's
that's a
important,
good film.
Dr. Gordo, that you're. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right, there we go. Thank you very much.
I was of the angry young man.
Sure, you were a rebel.
I come out of anthropology.
Yeah.
So my focus.
That's Lucas
is
talking to Cameron.
Social system.
Right.
And in science fiction, you got 2 branches. One is science, and the other is social.
Right.
I'm much more of the 1984 kind of guy.
Sure.
I am
THX 1138.
the spaceship guy.
Yeah.
The spaceship. I got into spaceships out of cars.
Yeah.
I love cars. I love going fast.
Going fast.
So, I like spaceships.
Yeah.
But
right.
It
Exactly.
isn't the science, aliens, and all that kind of stuff that I get focused on. It's the how do the people react to all those things? And
Yeah.
how do they accommodate them?
Yeah.
So that's the part that really fascinates me, and I'm interested in.
You did something very interesting with Star Wars, if you think about it. The good guys are the rebels. They're using asymmetric warfare against a highly organized empire. I think we call those guys terrorists today. We call them Mujahideen, we call them Al-Qaeda.
When I did it, they were Viet Cong.
Exactly. So were you thinking of that at the time?
Yes.
So it was a very anti-authoritarian, very kind of 60s against the man kind of thing, nested deep inside of a fantasy.
Or a colonial, we're fighting the largest empire in the world.
Right.
And we're just a bunch of hayseeds in coons hats that
That's
don't know
right.
nothing.
That's right.
Yep.
And it was the same thing with the Vietnamese.
Yep.
The irony of that one is in both of those, the little guys won.
Right.
and the big, highly technical empire,
The English Empire, right?
the English
British
Empire, the American Empire, lost.
Yeah.
That was the whole point.
But that's a classic us not profiting from the lesson of history, because you look at the inception of this country and it's a very noble fight of the underdog against the massive empire. You look at the situation now where America is so proud of being the biggest economy, the most powerful military force on the planet. It's become the empire from the perspective of a lot of people around the world.
It was the empire during the Vietnam War. But we never learned, from England or Rome or, a dozen other empires that went on for hundreds of years or sometimes thousands of years. We never got it. We never said, well, wait, this isn't the right thing to do. And we're still struggling with it.
And they fall because of failure of leadership.
Yeah, it
or,
always has
or,
the
or
American
government
Revolution
often.
feel to it.
And
Mostly
you have a great
I agree with that
line,
100%.
which is, so this is how liberty dies.
We're in the middle of it right now.
To thunderous applause. Exactly. It was a condemnation of populism in a science fiction context.
That's a theme that runs all the way through Star Wars.
I think science fiction is so good at these kind of social themes.
Yeah, the great thing about Star Wars is I had a thing, a vessel that I could throw anything into.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest problems you have in science fiction with movies, they don't have it in books or anything, but in movies, you have to create a real world.
Yeah.
And it's a real
it
world
was
that
an
doesn't
interesting
exist.
Vietnam comparison.
And you have to do what Kurosawa used to say is, it has to have immaculate reality.
Yeah.
Even though it's not
Could you
real.
pause for a second, Dr. Gordo? Just pause. Okay, thank you. I was going to ask, if you're going to show a clip that long, please make us aware that we're going to see a much longer clip. I have concerns about getting copyright claim, but thank you for the evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have anything else? Do you have anything else to present, or shall we move to
two
open
more
debate?
to
I kind of like that. Of course, I like watching George Lucas talk about his IP.
Page. The other one is Ewan McGregor in his own words. I just wanted that for the record.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Rubio. Please present your evidence.
And if I could just take a moment to explain how this exhibit is connected to the case. The prosecution itself admitted at the beginning that all stories need to come out of somewhere. The entertainment that we watch is quite often a reflection of the world. The key to the good storytelling, that classic storytelling, is to embed the messages so they're much more subconscious, that you understand what the writer or the storyteller wants to tell the world without it being too heavy over the head. And as George Lucas is admitting here, that when he created the original trilogy, he did have particular politics and
he said social
political
content, not
events
politics
in mind. And so I
yes,
don't think
they are
anyone
very
is faulting
similar to
Star
each other,
Wars
but they
here
are
for
different.
doing the same what all creatives are doing, looking to the real world in order to help build a world to present their story. But unfortunately, in this world, and what we're seeing is on both sides of this case, is that there's accusations of racism. Clearly, there have been racist statements made by fans, such as the one highlighted by Ian McGregor, which I will now play now for the court.
Yeah, exactly. Leave it to the defense to twist the words. Well, and he even had closed captioning on that video, and it clearly said the word social, not political.
I've decided to attack Moses Ingram online and send her the most horrendous racist DMs. And I heard some of them this morning, and it just broke my heart. Moses is a brilliant actor. She's a brilliant woman, and she's absolutely amazing in this series. She brings so much to the series. She brings so much to the franchise. And it just sickened me to my stomach to hear that this had been happening. I just want to say, as the leading actor in the series, as the executive producer on the series, that we stand with Moses. We love Moses. And if you're sending her bullying messages, you're no Star Wars fan in my mind. There's no place for
I
racism
definitely
in this world.
agree. You should not attack the actor or actress. They're just doing their job.
If I
their
was
job
Moses'
is
co-star in the show or
act
executive
out,
producer,
portray
it would
what's
only take
written
one
on the
racist
page by
comment
the
for
writers
me to get on my
and the
phone
showrunner.
and do something like we see here. And yes, this video in itself got a lot of criticism. How many racist comments were made? Were there 1,000? Was it 500? Was it just one? doesn't really matter because one is enough. And again, this is not the Disney Corporation organizing a campaign against the fans, accusing them of racism. This is a star of one of the shows, also an executive producer, independently making a message, sending out a message. Disney did make one statement in regards to racism
for me,
in the fan
I think
base.
the buck
in a
stops
tweet
with
that I
the
will
company,
share now.
the executive producers on the actual IP, and maybe even sometimes the director, and definitely the
Apologize
writers.
for this and work
But
between two
obviously,
screens.
the writers are going to write what the producers want produced. Ultimately, it comes down to the people that are producing the content.
I apologize for this.
In this
Your
case,
Honor.
it's Disney Lucasfilm.
Trying to bring up this.
And Kathleen or Potato Kennedy.
Co-counsel for doing all
Almost
the
said her
heavy
name.
Okay.
Not
I do commend the defense. It's not easy screen sharing if you may only have one screen. It can be quite difficult. I commend him.
Window. Here we go. Thank you.
Sure.
So
yeah, I don't know how
Star
anybody
Wars,
can do content
there are
creation.
more than
with
20
only just
million
one screen.
sentient species in the Star Wars galaxy. Don't choose to be a racist. And of course, we can go back and forth
Oh,
whether
I'm
of
sure.
the power of this statement, how
Walt
well
would not be
worded it
happy
was,
with what's going on.
or not.
I don't believe
but
he would.
the fact of the matter
Especially
remains,
in regards
how
to children.
is this one tweet from the official Star Wars site, how is the one message from Mr. McGregor evidence of a malicious campaign organized by the Disney Corporation to attack the fans? The evidence is simply not there to justify a malicious campaign against the fans. And when it comes to reflecting so-called modern sensibilities in the new trilogy, I have many different things to say about that. For one thing, we all know that diversity has always been part of the Star Wars universe. The
He's
Mos
talking
Eisley
about this
Cantina.
part right here.
So it is that diversity isn't always a
Threatened
great thing,
audiences
but hey,
with accusations of
diversity is there.
racism when they did not respond
And when
positively
you
to the
look
message
at
being
the
forced upon
empire
them.
of the original trilogy, it is all white males. It is a rather white male supremic organization. If you're describing the empire like that from
That's true,
1977
too. I don't think Walt would have
1983,
bought Star
I don't think you're going to
Wars.
have anyone giving you a counter on that.
Because it doesn't, it wouldn't gone
There's
along
always
with
been
his
diversity.
original vision and
We've
what
also had
Walt
great
Disney is
female
supposed to be.
characters like Leia. And can we really be upset at the Disney Corporation for thinking, hey, Star Wars is a great story.
So this
More
company, in a
girls
way,
should
has
be
kind of
introduced to
already
this
walked
story.
away
And so
from
how can we go about doing
its
that?
original vision.
Is it really a
So are we
harmful
really truly surprised
agenda
that they're
to
walking
try
away
to
from
get more
visions from
of
other
a
IPs
female
like
audience getting
Star Wars
into
and Marvel,
Star Wars,
things like that?
And when it comes to the
Shouldn't be a
not
surprise.
so secret gay agenda, I heard it mentioned by the prosecution that performances of Glover were liked by the fans, that there wasn't really a lot of criticism that, oh wow, Glover really screwed up Lando. It was a terrible way to describe, to portray him as a young man. The really only problem seemed to be his sexuality. And I would have to argue that at least in Han Solo, is the writing not well enough that you're willing to think, okay, I'm willing to give this a go? So it's
I don't
really
know.
not a
I mean,
problem with diversity.
him buying
It's
the-
really not a
the
problem with gay
puppets is
characters.
kind of
It's
on
really not a problem
brand
with
for
female
Disney.
characters.
Because
It all
Disney
comes
has
back
always
to
been, from the very
quality
beginning,
of the writing.
a
And once again,
kids
when I look
brand.
at all these charges, it just seems there's an upset fan base at the quality of the writing, the quality of the storytelling. There was no malicious campaign to go out and not only lose money on the franchise, but to murder it. I think Star Wars is at a low point right now, but I do believe it's
In the
alive.
original
And I
movies,
do
the original
believe that there
trilogy,
will
the
be a
big bad
renaissance.
Darth Vader was
Thank
voiced
you, Your Honor.
by James Earl Jones.
Thank you,
yeah,
Dr. Gordo.
Which I
And
like
now
him.
we will move to
I like him
open
not
debate.
even just in Star Wars, but I liked him in like Field of Dreams and other movies
Cross-examination,
like
then
that.
open debate. So
Can I'm dying here, Your Honor. Can I just get this off my chest real quick?
yes, Mr. Bryan.
What the F did any of that have to do with the charge? We talked about racism and fans being racist and nasty trolls on the internet. And if I recall, the charge was malicious introduction of current day politics. What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, James
I want to
Jones
object
is
and say
awesome. I
relevance
like him as an actor.
15,000
Always have.
times, you guys. I don't understand what any of what you guys presented here today has anything to do with defending the count as presented. Everything you brought up clips of actors complaining about racism from fans on the trolls on the internet. What does that do? What does that do with anything? Has nothing to do with the count for a malicious introduction of current day politics. Absolutely nothing, sir.
Mr. Kinnell, do you have some cross-examination questions or comments?
I have some questions. I've got a couple here.
I wanted to first respond to
go ahead.
The full charge was malicious introduction of current day politics on or about the 30th day of October. Did maliciously introduce current day politics
I can see
into
that,
what
Perrin,
would
but
have been
at the same
timeless
time,
storytelling and
what are the
threatened
actual
audiences
numbers
with
and things like that? Like, how much
racism.
have they made overall with the Muppets
Again,
and so
though,
forth?
answer.
Because
and
that's
threatened
more of
the
an
audience
objective
of accusations of
fact
racism
than
and did not respond
someone's
positively to the
subjective feeling
messaging
about
being
it.
forced upon them. In order to answer that
Yeah.
particular part of the
From a
charge
certain point of view.
and prove that Disney did not threaten them, I had to first show you that there was racism and that the only response given was that they choose not to be racist, which is hardly a threat.
I did appreciate, Mr. Rubio, I did appreciate the bold strategy of labeling Star Wars fans racist in your opening argument, or at least a large portion of them are, something like that. Do you want to clarify that at all? Because I feel like that was a little bit
statement.
It was an interesting way.
My exact words
yes,
were
please.
that there are a lot of ugly people in this world, and that unfortunately, some of them label themselves as Star Wars fans.
I believe you said a lot of them label themselves as Star Wars fans, but I will take your correction.
I did not state that all Star Wars fans were racist.
Agreed. Unfortunately, Lucas, all of this stuff surrounding Moses Ingram, I would like to get into that. You guys presented these, the DMs were sent and things like that. When we get an open argument, I would like to actually put forth a little bit of evidence. I'm not going to do it here. This is a rebuttal, but I have some DMs that I can show of mine that are pretty nasty. I would just talk about internet personalities, things like that. So Moses Ingram should not be sent any racist DMs, I agree. However, I do think when we're talking about the grand scope of Star Wars and someone who is being exposed to millions and millions and millions of people, there are going to be some outliers out there, some disgusting individuals. I do agree with you.
Yeah,
And
I
if
just
they
love
took the
everybody
response
equally.
and said, hey, it's not okay. I
Especially
think that'd be
if
one
they
thing.
like
However,
cheese.
in our argument, we did just show that Lucasfilm.
Speaking of which,
I love cheese. I love cheese. I love cheese. I love cheese so much. I love cheese so much. So give me some nom 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 nom.
yeah, baby, I had to play that. Yeah, coffee too. I need to find a coffee one, but I couldn't resist. Cheese popped in my head because I do love cheese. I'm a penguin that is a cheese lover. Anyway, we'll get back to listening to Mr. Kinnell here, rebuttaling the defense. One thing I did like is the fact that they're kind of calling the defense on this, that they kind of seemed to not make any type of logical, yeah, I'm a cheesy penguin in more than one way. But I make cheesy comments and I love cheese. Matter of fact, I love cheese pizza. What's not to love? Good stuff. Oh, anyway. I like how they're kind of like bringing up the fact that like most of the stuff that they talked about was like fan backlash and so forth and that kind of stuff. How is that? That's more of a subjective exhibit than an objective one. And when you're in a court of, I mean, this is my understanding of court proceeding, that you make a logical, objective argument, not one filled with opinion but filled with facts that can be proven or disproven. Either way, putting in your own thoughts about something is not making a logical, objective argument on either side when it comes to court proceedings. So, it did. That's why I guess maybe that's why I was also having a little bit of a hard time following the logic of Mr. Rubio. Dr. Gordo was a little bit more logical in the way he came out with stuff. He did explain why he was saying what he was and showing what he was. But still, at the end of it, though, the last part of it, he still went down with that Ewan McGregor video. He still went down the same path as Mr. Rubio did with the fan backlash and so forth. And that's a subjective, not objective, because it's not necessarily always a fact. Because then you have to start speaking to the intention of every individual person involved in that backlash. What they were actually meaning when they said it. And the reason why I say that is it's very easy when you see something online in text to misunderstand the intention of what's actually being said. Because, like, for example, Aaron just making a comment, I'm a cheesy penguin. Well, that could mean more than one way. Does it mean that I love cheese as a penguin? Yes. It just so happens also that I like making cheesy puns or cheesy jokes. So I'm cheesy in that way as well. But in that statement, I'm a cheesy penguin, neither one of those was actually indicated to directly. It indicated several different meanings. So it goes to the intent. That's what I'm saying here about this, that the arguments about the fan backlash, I just don't think they hold a lot of water. I did like Dr. Rubio's little video clip of George Lucas and James Cameron talking. Some of that made a little bit of sense for the defensive side of things. Anyway, let's continue on here what Mr. Kendall has to say for rebuttal. Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
Before this came out, told Moses Ingram that there was going to be a racist backlash against her.
Yeah.
Now, you pointed out in your defense.
I actually read that article
Mr.
when it
Gordo,
first came out.
Dr. Gordo, my apologies. Dr. Gordo, you pointed out that some of these things didn't happen to someone like Donald Glover, but they warned her that it would happen. That's really strange. Can you please explain to me why you don't think that there's any sort of malicious intent behind already preloading this concept in both the minds of the actors, the producers, and also in the mainstream media, because these stories came out before the show came out.
Yeah, they did.
About fans being racist.
I think Vanity Fair was one of them.
Now, none of us were privy to any conversations any of these actors had with any of the executives, so we have to be careful of speculation. My educated guess would be that these actors are warned about all sorts of things that could happen, because when you now attach yourself to a major franchise such as Star Wars, and people are going to be coming out of the woodwork, want to know who you are, there's bound to be some warnings going along. And so, yes, there does seem to be this conspiracy that they plan to go against the racist accusations during Obi-Wan before those accusations even happened. Is it reasonable they were going to happen? Yes. So is it reasonable to plan? Of course. Is this all coming out smelling very nice? No. I think it's all clear there are a lot of problems here. And again, to me, Disney is guilty of doing some bad writing by if they were to take the world and try to put it up on the screen, or rather to take contemporary politics. That's a normal part of the creative process. To do it maliciously, you mean you want to cause harm? Who here is going to make a movie that's going to cause harm and expect it to make money? It just simply doesn't add up.
I don't know if I buy the fact that
it seems to be fans are upset with the
politics is always part of the creative process
that they paid for.
Because you can tell stories without having politics in it.
Dr. Gordo,
I think
just
once again he's
add that I
confusing
think you actually proved
social
malice.
context with political
When
context.
they intentionally created the character for Moses Ingram, and they went out of their way to push an agenda that they knew fans ahead of time would be unhappy with, and then used her skin color to blame ahead of time, to blame their malice on racist versus what she was, a Mary Sue. That's the majority of fans had a problem with her because of her writing, because she was a Mary Sue. But they intentionally beforehand warned her of racist, so they knew ahead of time that they were writing a Mary Sue that most fans were not going to like. And the way you proved that was with Glover, how fans didn't react the same way to him.
Brian's characterization of a Mary Sue is simply his opinion.
I could define Mary Sue, Mr. Rubio.
No, but I'm saying, but that's your opinion that she is a Mary Sue.
Well, did you watch the series?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, so she literally never failed. She even the definition of a Mary Sue.
She got stabbed several times by Darth Vader.
I'm sorry, what?
She got stabbed several times by Darth
and still somehow survived the amazingly overpowered Darth Vader that can pull a ship out of the sky, showed up at the planet exactly where the kid was, never had to work for anything. She's the definition of a Mary Sue.
I'm not here to defend the writing of Obi-Wan Kenobi and as to whether or not it was or was not a good series. That is to be determined perhaps in another charge or account. But the fact of the matter remains that if you are going to try to maliciously sink a Fortune 500 company that is 100 years old and traded on the New York Stock Exchange, that is going to cause the launch of an investigation by the FCC. There is now. Were the decisions made by CEO Kennedy, by the head of Disney, Papa Iger, by the writers of all these movies, were they in error? Were they stupid? Were they misguided? Perhaps. And in some cases, that does prove out, especially when you start looking at falling ratings. But were they malicious? No. Everything was designed to try to bring in a bigger worldwide audience because that is what the audience is today. Disney is a company. Their main focus is not on story. It's not on,
but they already had a large audience before all
the
this.
fans of the old Star Wars. Their focus is on increasing profits, and they're doing it the way they know how. Is it good?
No, that's not working.
But
Which
it's
seems
not
to indicate
malicious.
they're. I totally agree with you, Mr. Rubio. Their focus is not on doing these things. Their focus is not on the story. It's not on good writing. It's not on good characters. It's on pushing an agenda. I completely agree with you on that point. I do have a question.
I did not state it was pushing an agenda.
I did.
Unless you,
They just thought they could get away with it, and they didn't.
Unless you want to clarify that the agenda is profit, because that is their bottom line and the first and
But they didn't
foremost
really make
thing
that
that
good
they
of a
think about
profit. They
when they
could.
greenlight anything. Is how will this get us the biggest audience?
He's going to
I
address
feel like
it
this
here.
is a great discussion to continue an open debate. I have a couple more things before we end the cross-examination. Dr. Gordo, you gave a great closing about, Star Wars fans aren't mad that a character is black. Star Wars fans aren't mad that a character is gay. I completely and totally, wholeheartedly agree with you. Then you said something.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
About people are mad because the writing's bad. Because
Yeah. The story
everything
was
in-
not
surrounding
all
the
that great.
production of Star Wars is kind of incompetent right now. It feels like a lot of the characters, things like this. How do you square that with what we presented earlier, with our evidence we presented earlier about who is specifically going out of their way to hire the vast majority of females to be in their executive departments, to be in their story groups, to be in all of these things. Not who's best for the job. Not even if you take like a sampling of women versus men in the industry. There's no way it's 50-50 in terms of these executive jobs. They overrepresented females when you take into account the actual per capita. They did that intentionally. They told us that they did that intentionally. Do you not think that that has anything to do with their focus on hiring people of a specific skin color or gender or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Any
Profit.
impact on the quality of storytelling from Lucasfilm?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a great question, Ryan, because I mean, it does ask the question, can you hire the best people available and still have your 50% of your writing staff being female? I would say yes. It is possible that you could have 50-50 and still have hired the best people. Now, I'm sorry, the first part of your question? I believe you asked two parts. I only answered one of them. I'm sorry.
Well, to be fair, I think the first part was me mostly thanking you for pointing out that Star Wars fans don't hate something because it's a black character or a gay character, but it's because of this writing involved.
Yeah, I don't like
if
the
that's
story.
your answer. That's your answer. I don't necessarily agree that if you go out with the sole intention to create this character, this story, just like Dave Filoni said, while mocking fans, by
like,
the way,
for example,
deriding
in
fans
Force
and
Awakens,
laughing at them
I actually kind of
about
like Finn.
how many more female
Finn was
kind of
cool to see him kind of, because he kind of had
I don't think that
a
that
growing
is
arc
necessarily in the best
from the minute
interest
of
the
realizing,
brand. I
you
think
know,
it's anti the interest.
what am
of
I
the
doing
brand
here
of
in this
Star Wars.
uniform? I shouldn't
And
be
I
on
think
this
it is
side.
a
I should
big
be on the
reason
other
why
side.
We're seeing these stories
You
struggle
know?
to hit the mark with so many people. That would be
That's
that
a
was kind of
character
my
arc.
argument, and so I like to see. I was happy that in your closing statement of the defense that you acknowledged that as well. We might have a disagreement on what causes the poor writing, but that's what I would suggest is that all these decisions that take place not just in the movies, but in the hiring processes are what is sank Star Wars.
Or a big tangent. I mean, if we want to go back to 2014, 2015, Kevin and I were having that conversation. If you think about other movies that year, Mad Max Fury Road. And now I know there's diverse opinions on that film. Personally, I really enjoyed it. I was thoroughly entertained, and I thought Furiosa's character for a movie about post-apocalyptic Australia, yeah, I enjoyed it. I believed her
So did
character. The same year, you've got Rey coming out in The Force Awakens. And so for me, I see, not being there at the Hollywood business table, I see, okay, I think we see a way to make money here. The audience wants strong female character. So if we can create stories around that point, put lots of explosions around it, people will come out and, just throw money at us. They didn't really realize the nuances on what makes, say, Furiosa a better character than Rey. We'll watch female characters all day. We've loved them for decades. Jennifer Lawrence was not the first one. There were others before her. We've all talked about another podcast. But all serious aside, yeah, give us a believable character, male, female, something in the middle. That's okay. If you wanted to have Poe and Finn form a relationship over the new sequel, there was a way you could have done it, and you could have actually done it very well. There's so many different things that could have been done differently that could have gone about an agenda if that was the plan, to have more of these representation out there on the film. They could have done that, and they could have done it a better way. But again, our point here today is not to debate the quality of the writing, even though I do tend to go back to it. It's what's the charge? Did Disney maliciously try to destroy this franchise with identity politics? Did it maliciously go after fans with racist accusations? That's the charge, and that's the only evidence that we can consider here today.
I just have one more thing for cross-examination. One, I appreciate you're getting into the semantic game again. I am not anti-semantic. I just want to point that out on this court, okay? I am not anti-semantic.
It's not semantic, it's the charge.
I don't know if it's the best strategy. However, I did want to address the video you played of George Lucas and James Cameron. George Lucas and James Cameron. When I watched that video, you did acknowledge that I mentioned something in my opening statement about, we have always kind of had movies that are inspired off these universal themes and things that are going on in the world certainly tend to influence that sometimes. Do you think that there's a difference between George Lucas modeling some of his universe off the age-old notion of authoritarian versus anti-authoritarian? Authoritarians can be left-wing, authoritarians can be right-wing, they can be somewhere in the middle. But this is a story we've seen play out over the course of history, time and time again. And he even brought up 3 different iterations of that same type of anti-authoritarian versus the authoritarians. Do you think that kind of universally understood message and universally relatable to message is the same?
I don't know that we wouldn't
as
even have a nation.
What I would say is
If it
pushing
wasn't for
third and
that.
fourth
The
wave
American
radical
Revolution, what do you
feminism
think
down
that's all
people's
about?
throats.
Freedom, baby!
Pushing what in my mind is a very aggressive agenda towards making sure that we check all of these boxes. And if you say anything about it, you complain about this character, we are going to launch a social media campaign against you and label you racist to protect ourselves. Do you think there's a difference between kind of what we're seeing and what we're talking about in this case versus those very age-old allegories and universally relatable allegories that George Lucas was speaking about?
Oh, yes, Ryan, I'd love to take an hour to get into this. So rather to make it as quickly as possible, I've taught social and critical theory to students for many years now. And the way I explain it is the way these theories were created, they're called lenses for a reason. It's a lens that you put on, and it's a way to understand different aspects about the world. You put on the feminist lens and you see certain things. You put on the Marxist lens, you see more political economic things. But the one thing I warned my students about is these lenses are meant to better understand the way the world is. They cannot be used to create the world as it could be. And what I mean by that is when you've got a writer that's very well read in, say, feminist literature, they can put together a story and there could be all these feminist ideas in it, but you wouldn't really even notice it. Because again, it's been embedded in the story. They're pointing out is. When you try to use this theory to try to force change on the world, a lot of bad things happen. And we're seeing it in the division in our politics right now. It's as bad as Canada is in the United States. We're seeing it in the terrible entertainment that we're getting. All of what we do on a daily basis, all this action, all this talk, eventually finds its way to art. And perhaps that's why things are just so ugly today in art and so angry, that we need to stop these ugly, angry conversations in order to get better art. But that's another case for another day. So I hope I answered your question in the sense that, yes, when George Lucas read The Hero of a Thousand Faces, when he looked at the geopolitical world and he knew how to use the archetypes properly, put together a great story. You get people who do not know how to appreciate the power of these lenses or what they're meant for, you're going to get some bad writing.
Okay.
I think it's also along the lines that...
Mr. Brian, do you have anything else?
I do not, sir.
That some people totally lost my train of thought. Started thinking about cheese again. That's what you get for a nice and shiny penguin. But it's I kind of like what he said there was. The lens is for you to get a better understanding or looking at a particular viewpoint, and not that lens is used to shape the world as you want to see it. And I think that's the biggest part of this problem that fans have with not just Star Wars, but any modern entertainment. The entertainment is like it's always supposed to have been, an escapism from the moment, day-to-day life. Maybe just take a few minutes and, unwind or immerse yourself in something that's not necessarily happening to you, but you can relate to or understand, or maybe not even relate to, but just lose yourself in the story. And injecting modern day politics and agenda into that story takes someone out of the immersion. it brings real life back into something that someone who's watching it is trying to temporarily get their mind off of what's happening in real life. Doesn't mean that they don't want to know about some type of social or moral story, or even political concepts into the story itself, but to overtly bring that to the forefront and be the motivation over the story itself is the problem I think we all have with this. Is because it's one of those things that it's no longer an immersive escapism story. It's all about something else, something that is in our real life. And why would we want to spend all of our time living in the real life, then also hearing about the worst of real life or some political ideology or something that's in real life when you just sit down and you kind of want to unplug for a little bit from the weariness that life is at times. And I think that's the biggest problem here. Anyway, let's continue on. I felt like as a little tiny, nice and shiny, cheesy penguin, I had to share my thoughts. It is called Penguin Thoughts for that fact.
You're muted, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Before we move to open debate, very quickly, we did a poll once the defense was completed with their presentation. 634 people voted. Who do you think had the most convincing argument today? Prosecution 90%, defense 9% out of 634 votes. It's just to get the temperature of where the jury is going. A couple of chats here from our jury, and then we'll move to...
Your Honor, I just want to point out just how great our jury is, how unbiased and impartial they are. I commend them and wish them to continue down this path as the weeks go by.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ng. Thank
I
you,
agree.
Mr. Ng. Sifax, threat level 1, has been a member for 7 months and says Disney approved the writing, so are still to blame.
All right. Looks like we're
Amani
going
Wilson,
into
threat level
super
2, has been a
chats
member for
here.
a month, says Disney still hasn't made back the $4 billion.
Let's go into the open debate. And once again, if it gets real heated and the filter is not able to compensate for that, for the profanity and everything, I may skip around some, or I may just skip it altogether.
Threats are never appropriate, and
However, it does tell me something about the makeup of the jury.
Well, it is, that's the
objection, speculation, Your Honor.
Hey, I am more than willing to let the defense continue to attack the jury. I'm sure it'll do well for him.
Yeah, it's going to work out.
However, what I will say is that death threats are never okay. It's never something that should be okay. However, it does exist in this online world we live in. You talked about an online world, Mr. Rubio, and very dismissive of some of the things in this online world, despite the fact that we're right here. What I would say is that I can go through my DMs and my requests, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I can find you horrific things. I can find you terrible things.
Same here.
That is a tiny microcosm of reality of all normal people out there.
And a sad one.
And I guess it is sad, but it's also just the reality. There's always going to be this very, very fringe 0.01% of the population that goes ahead and does something like that with us because of internet anonymity or whatever. What I will say is to play victim and to use this moment to put out a choreographed and and I think this is where some of the malice can come in, guys.
Yep, pre-written.
They had already planned on using this excuse. In the
Yep.
case of Moses Ingram, they prepped the media, they prepped Moses Ingram.
Yeah.
And as soon as
It's
it
like
happened,
they
and there
knew
was
it was going to
bad
happen.
feedback for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
They prepped
Boom,
Miss
that's the
Ingram.
biggest headline coming off week 3 of Obi-Wan release.
They prepped Miss Ingram because past his prologue and because of the treatment that Kelly Marie Tran had received. Moses
you did
Ingram
mention
is
Kelly
not
Marie
only a
Tran.
female, she is an African-American female.
Yeah, I disagree.
Oh man, she's got double
Unfortunately, women in any field are subject to more criticism than men. And I would also like to just point out at this time that this entire court is made up of, I'm not going to call old white guys, but I'm going to say of white men of a certain age.
I'm actually non-binary and Latinx, sir.
Well, Mazel tov.
Thank you.
I have no idea what it is, nor
I
will
don't know
I
if
ever.
he was serious or not.
As a female in my industry, which I have seen some deplorable things happen to females that would never happen to males, and sadly, that is the same case for any field. Females are marginalized, and I think that it's you'll walk into an office that will be 90% male workers and think nothing of it, but if the opposite is true, all of a sudden, oh my God, the world has gone to hell in a handbasket. Why are all these women here?
Mr. Rubio, I have a question for you. Do you think that
that's just because of the world we live in?
Do you think that who do you think is more, I guess, marginalized or feels more out of place in their workplace? A female nurse or a male nurse?
I wouldn't know, sir. I have neither, but I can tell you.
You were just talking about every workplace here across the country.
Ryan, I make fun of my brother-in-law who's a male nurse all the time, so I'm gonna go with male nurse.
Yeah, but I think the point being made here is that they're allowing a small minority of hateful people speak for the majority, and I think that's what the major problem is that to not like a certain movie, to not like a certain character, now you equate that with the people who really don't like them and makes the racist and the misogynistic comments, and then assigns it to them. And that is not fair, and that does not fix the problem of fixing bad movies, bad stories, and bad characters.
It also happens to distract from the reality, which was much more than just about her race. It was.
My point is the anger is misdirected. Again, I stated earlier in the proceedings that I have over 30 years in the business. About 17 of those years is with children's television, predominantly run by females, and quite frankly, some of the more powerful females in the industry. And I didn't, but most people don't know that because most people don't care where your My Little Ponies comes from or where your Batman comes from. But the cartoon renaissance of the 90s that has blossomed into what we now have is at least 5 networks running cartoons 24/7 was started by a female.
Mr. Rubio,
I'm sorry. Can I quickly add something?
Go ahead.
I think that this argument is, I'm going to say dumb. I have 115,000 subs on my main channel. That's nothing compared to Chris. But it's enough to warrant, my face isn't even in the video, constant comments daily on my videos that are just threatening and complaining about my voice. Or my brother's voice, telling us horrible things, just assuming what we are. The internet, there's a portion of the internet that is always going to be that way, even with nothing but 100,000 subs. It's always going to be that way, always.
You're not going to make everybody happy.
Trying to fight against that is it's like trying to punch the ocean. And it's just a waste of time. But that's not the majority of the fans. That's not the majority of Star Wars fans. That's a small portion. And the bigger the boat, the bigger that portion is going to be. And that's just facts.
Unfortunately, the smaller portion tends to be the loudest. And because of metrics there, grievances tend to get pushed to the top of the list, which just reinforces it day by day.
Because of metrics. Mr. Rubio, there's been several instances today where you have insinuated that the jury, has a bias and things like that.
Absolutely, I can.
You just
prove
mentioned.
I've been screen capturing through the whole trial.
Incredible. What I would ask you is, you talked about you do work in animation.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever worked on any animation related to Star Wars?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you work with anybody who might still be at Lucasfilm? In that in that time?
I'm sorry?
Did you work with anyone who still happens to be at Lucasfilm at that time?
David Filoni.
Okay, so do you think that you have the right to label the jury as non-biased? You worked on the Clone Wars with Dave Filoni.
I saw that coming, Ryan.
Oh, he's kind of biased himself.
Yes, I do.
I'm not surprised that someone
I
spent all this time in the
can by
industry
their
would
action.
think that they could talk that way to the fan base. I'm not surprised at all. Thank you.
Let's go to some comments from the jury and see what they had to say. Jeffrey Hallam for $4.99 says, a caretaker who continually feeds their charge small doses of poison communicates malice.
Back to the open debate again here.
Open debate, and thank you, Mr. Blackwood, for showing off.
Oh, wait a minute. Can I go back to Blackwood stuff?
Simpson. Judge between.
I like it when he zooms in on him so I can see his stuff. Sorry, I'm backtracking here.
We're merely debating charge number 4.
Where's it
Rumble
at?
Rant for $1, Visitor 22. After a new trilogy, 2 other movies, and 3 TV shows, at what point can
There we go. Okay.
I would love to see screenshots of all the harassment she
That's,
receives later deleting her
Rose
Instagram.
Pico.
It wasn't just like, wow, your character sucks. Wow, your character sucks. Wow, your character was really pointless.
But you'll have to understand that the most of them are basically screen.
What's the next one
They're
here?
just like, they don't have the.
Oh, that's the shiny helmet.
Have the problem with
Chris
people.
Gore in the eyes.
Yeah, to be clear,
what else?
It's a very small. There was a very
that's the
small
Kathleen
number of
Kennedy
comments
or
on her
Potato
Instagram
Kennedy.
about how people
Oops,
didn't
my
like
bad.
her character.
I actually
And
called
also,
her
if you want to
Kathleen.
take Kelly Marie Tran at her word, she actually left
Potato
social media
Kennedy.
because of the pressures of Hollywood and the entertainment. So I would victimize her.
Give me a moment.
Who else has he got? I want to see all his
judge?
drawings.
Coin slot. Jay
Oh!
Tapa for not
Wait a minute,
199.
that's
If you step-
He-Man. Who was the
for
picture
looking at
of the He-Man?
Harry Coin slot. Jay Tapa for not
That's
199.
somebody,
If you
I don't
step
know
to
who.
Ryan, you best not hard it is to prove malicious sabotaging of the
who's
franchise.
this?
Clear it is that believing CRT leads to gross mishandling / vandalism
Oh, that's,
of cultural
from last week,
properties
like
in the
Tom.
name of progress
Think it is.
and good. And a comment from Rumble, left cross supporter gasp. This is a fake court?
Taking a while to
Question
res.
mark? Zach's threat level 1 has been a member for 7 months and says, who is it exactly that amplifies
There it is.
hateful
Yeah, okay.
comments?
That's who was actually the picture of.
Has
All right.
show us
Ooh, that's a
on
cool
this
background. Look at that
unsocial
one,
Pico
lightning.
figure where the
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And Nicky for 5.
Oh, he did
I
time
need to know if
lapse
these
replay.
drawings will be available
That's
anywhere.
cool.
right
They
now.
are really good.
You can see all of these at Mr. Blackwood's
Yeah,
Instagram.
he is so
the courtroom
good.
Sketches. Go to
I had to show
blackwoodpdx.com
his stuff.
or at Blackwood_PDX.
He's my favorite part
Follow
of this whole
Todd
trial.
Blackwood on
Has been what
Instagram,
he's drawing.
where he will be posting all of these illustrations and courtroom sketches for today. That's all I have for comments right now.
Oh, we have a Rumble rant that came
I
in.
want the He-Man one.
We have a few more coming in.
we-
But let
we've got
me,
more open
we have a
debate
Rumble
here.
Open
Looks
debate.
like.
And thank you, Mr. Blackwood, for showing off your
Look,
amazing
there's
pictures.
Mr.
And there
Gore.
I am.
Hey,
Judge, Your Honor, can I bring up a question real
I
quick?
want to answer the
Mr. Rubio's
the
been
viewer's question.
Go ahead, Mr. Rubio.
About how the who exactly pushes the hateful speech to the top. It's your cookies and your metrics. The more that a word appears within an article on the web, the higher up it gets pushed. People respond to that, continuing with certain key phrases, and that continues to push it up.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Mr.
we're
Rubio,
almost getting to
actually,
the end of it here.
That used to be the case in like 2003, but we haven't been using Boolean search since literally the early 2000s. The way it works now is actually unknown. It's not based on cookies or words. The algorithm can't even be gamed the same way as it used to be back in the early 2000s. So now it's actually based mostly on actual people or bots on social media that give whatever the campaign's looking for that bullhorn, and it can be positive or negative. It's often negative because negativity sells more than positivity does. Take it from me. I have 2 channels. One has 115,000 subs, and I've been very positive for 5 years, and it's taken me a long time. Another one has 6K subs, and it's grown 15 times faster, and I complain most of the time. Negativity sells better than positivity, especially when the negativity has value in critical thought. When people are watching you and they're saying, oh, wow, I feel the same way. I also feel very betrayed by this franchise or by this show or this movie or whatever. When they start thinking, when they start seeing or hearing what you're saying as their thoughts, then they will push that message for you. That's the way the internet works.
Thank you for the education. In answer to Ryan's question about Kelly Marie Tran, in an interview with Vox.com on June 5th, 2018, she said, and I quote, I avoided social media for the longest time purely because I was afraid. I was terrified of being picked apart, of being scrutinized, of being seen. I am an incomplete, imperfect, broken mess, and I am here to say that it's okay to be imperfect.
So I will point to you in that entire interview. She goes in detail about
social
her,
media. You gotta
her
have a
backstory
thick
and her
skin.
history,
I know that
and
much.
always feeling this way about herself. So she was saying that she avoided social media before these things happen because of all of those pressures. That's what that interview is about, I believe.
I would submit that anyone who receives any kind of notoriety or fame on the internet receives, I would say, the equal amount of abuse.
100%.
So
I could show you hundreds of comments from last week. Hundreds of comments, and I'm not even famous. 100,000 subs, and I get 150 comments a week.
Can I share some DMs with the court? May it please the court?
Please, Mr.
Oh, Ryan's probably worse than me.
All right, so this is just, I'm not going to go through all of them. I think it'll take forever. I just want to go through one and to show people that this does happen on the internet. Mark McGeehan, thanks for sending me your DMs, buddy. I appreciate it. You finally got my attention. Hey, ass, those videos you talking shit about Disney, or I'm going to report you. I wish every day you got banned from YouTube, you're racist. I'm warning you to stop shit Disney. I seriously hope you die one day. I am seriously going to destroy your career if you talk shit about Star Wars. I'm still going to keep reporting you when you're dead and or banned from YouTube. You're a dead man walking. I'm warning you. Are you ready to die? Stop talking shit Disney, you racist. You're a dead man walking. I wish every day you're dead in the news. Stop talking about Disney, you racist. Are you ready to die? Racist Disney hater. I'm warning you. I wake up every day. I think he says, I wish you were dead. I wish you could just die and never show your face again. Stop talking crap about Disney. You're really making me pissed. Stop. Get ready to die. I wake up every... So, is this enough?
Jesus, that's way worse than me, dude. Oh my God.
Ryan, you underestimate Mr. McGeehan's 7 followers.
I know.
It would seem that he really only has about 2 songs on his playlist.
Oh, Lord, man.
I stopped because then he starts calling me racial slurs. He starts somehow calling me the N-word. Not sure how that works if I'm racist and also white. But so I just use that as an example to point out that people that are online, people that make themselves publicly available, there's going to be some freaks like that out there. There's going to be some people, and that doesn't make it
because they can hide behind their technology.
But it is
and
just
those same
the
people,
reality.
you put them
it's
in
not
front of
acceptable
you.
that somebody might
More than
might
likely,
run a red
most
light
people
and
wouldn't be
T-bone
that
me
way,
and kill me
face to
But
face
it's
in real life.
Part of life when you go out there and decide to drive. That's kind of my view on online harassment.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I get made fun of because of my weight and my voice. That guy's threatening to kill you.
Yeah.
Not even the same. I apologize.
You're a very handsome man, Brian.
Well, even
I
have experienced this. When I first started doing television in the late 90s, early 2000s, I remember the first email I received. I have no idea how this person got my email. It was from Chris Gore is fat at hotmail.com. That is the email address. And it was just someone saying cruel and horrible things. It got to the point where when I was on a show called
I
The
know
New
it may
Movie
be a
Show,
shocker, but
I
even
got
this
a
little
threat from
penguin's
a guy
been
that was a very
attacked.
specific threat.
I just got
in
attacked
writing,
even this last week.
and unbeknownst to
On
me,
a
I
couple
wasn't aware of
videos
this.
I
There
made.
is a division of the Los Angeles Police Department that specifically deals with threats to people that work
It
in
is
the
what it
entertainment
is.
industry. I turned over the evidence to the people in that department they then visited and had a
I
conversation.
don't think
with
I've
this
had it as
person.
bad as these guys.
So
Not even
I can
close.
tell you, and I'm reviewing movies at the time like Adam Sandler movies.
Right.
So
I think I was watching you, Brad.
If you reviewed Jack and Jill, that's worthy of threats. All right.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
you were asking for it then.
Exactly. So I don't want to I don't want to jump into the conversation too much, but I'd like to get everyone's final thoughts as we wrap up for today. Final thoughts, final debate, your opportunity to sum up your argument, defend your argument, or destroy the other side. However.
Yeah, you got to be
your
careful
final
with
thoughts
that,
from
Perrin.
everyone on the prosecution.
There
and the
are
defense.
some. It's
And
just like
so
it is
debate, so
in
whoever
real
wants to go
life.
first.
There are good
If,
people out
if I
there,
may,
and then there are
prosecution
also
line could go first.
weird, bad people out there.
Sure.
Well, I think
and you
I
got to be
think-
careful.
Correct me
Some
if I'm
people
wrong,
actually
Your
take
Honor.
action on what they're actually saying.
Does prosecution rest last?
I wouldn't want to see anybody get hurt.
Or no, does defense go last because they go second in the motions, or is it prosecution and defense closing arguments?
To answer your question very seriously, I'm not exactly sure in a
Yeah,
made-up
me neither.
trial. In a made-up trial on YouTube, I'm not exactly sure what the
Okay.
rules are. We can make up our own rules.
Well, we went first, so
Make
so
your
they
own
go
rules
last.
or
That's
made
how
up
it works.
trial.
Yeah.
So I actually failed the bar. So
Well, there you
Ah,
go. So you're ahead of
that's
me.
what I thought.
Could be either way.
Well, there you go.
All right. Your final debate, discussion, arguments, and things that you want to sort of leave the jury with, because in the coming weeks, we're going to go through each charge. We're only on count number 4. There are 9 total counts.
And I'm just a penguin.
So this is going to take
I'm
us
not a
through
lawyer.
almost to the
I
end
don't
of
even
July.
play one on TV.
So just your final comments and remarks for today's session in court.
I know Dr. Gordo had been waiting to speak for a while. I don't know if you wanted to go.
Go ahead, Dr. Gordo.
It's rather quickly. I guess I know as annoying as it is, it really does comes back to this word malicious. Does it mean just to do something on purpose? Okay, that's where it seems like a lot of people are using that definition. Did Disney include all this current identity politics on purpose? Well, yes. But if your definition of malicious is to cause harm, did they do it to cause harm? You could look at it like this. Did you do the dishes? Yes, I did them maliciously. So are the dishes okay? If you did the dishes maliciously, I'm just trying to point out the power of that word because, yes, the preciseness of language does matter. I
Yeah,
think
I
something
agree
else
with that.
come up here today.
Words do
that
have
when it comes
power
to the Star Wars galaxy,
and meaning.
we're okay with diversity. It's okay that you've got a galaxy full of different people who look different things and have different values. Is it okay if there's female characters in Star Wars? Absolutely. We love Leia. Rey could have been great, but wasn't. Because again, it really comes down to the way things were executed. They did not hire the best people for the job, and it doesn't really matter what the gender ratio was. And then when it comes to the gay agenda, I will go on to live and say I think Star Wars are okay with gender fluid characters, just like they're okay with the female characters or they're okay with diversity. It all comes down to, are you telling an entertaining story that is going to let me escape reality for a few hours? That is what we want you doing on purpose. And I think that's what Disney has been trying to do. Have they been doing so well with the execution? That's up for another debate, because again, our matter here today is quite simple. Did Disney maliciously push a political agenda on the audience, and did it maliciously go after fans, calling them racist? We've looked at the evidence here, and although there's a lot of circumstantial stuff going on, no, Disney did not organize a campaign to go after the fans, and no, it did not organize a campaign to annoy the audience and lose money. Thank you.
All right. I guess I can go. That way you can wrap it up.
Sure. Hey, Brian.
So there's got to be a difference between, malicious-wise, there's got to be a difference between losing money and pushing an agenda that you think that you can weather. So what Mr. Rubio said was, he said, well, how can it be malicious if their goal is to make money? Well, sure, their secondary goal is to make money. But their primary goal is to push an agenda, and they're hoping they can get away with it. And they just didn't this time. In fact, I would say they probably did money-wise. They probably made out okay. But the fans aren't happy, and that's why the IP is slowly losing steam. So the question is their agenda to make money, right? Or is it to push some kind of political agenda, i.e. fourth wave feminism or whatever? Is that the agenda? When you look at what the creators of the movies and TV shows are saying on Twitter and in interviews, like Mr. Cannell pointed out, they clearly either they're lying to the audience that they're speaking to about pushing down one type of fan to lift up another type of fan, or they're not, or they're telling the truth and they're doing that intentionally. And if they're doing that intentionally and they know that the backlash is going to be negative, then they think that they can probably weather the storm because the agenda is more important than the money in the short term. They probably think that us dumb Star Wars fans are going to eat it up anyways and still go watch the movie. And in a lot of cases, that's probably the case. This is the reason why Transformers makes $1 billion every time it comes out. We can complain about it all day long, but we still show up, right? So at what point does it matter if we complain about it if we're still watching the movies and TV shows? And if they know that, if they have those metrics, if they know that we're still going to show up, like Jason Isaac said about Star Trek Discovery, the Trekkies are still going to show up regardless. If they know we're still going to show up, then they can do whatever they want. They can push the envelope, they can take the heat, and they can blame it on racist fans in pre-written press releases that they wrote before the episode even came out. Right? That's the thought.
Did you want to respond to that, Mr. Rubio?
I think they want to earn money, but I think it's secondary to their main agenda, which is to push the ideology.
Mr. Gordo went and Brian went.
But I would like
it's open to.
But I would like something for the record.
Yeah, sure.
If it pleases the court,
please.
Within these proceedings, the court has had to remind the jury no less than 4 times to be impartial. Also, through no fault of the court, a video that could prove bias, showcasing the judge himself, has been let loose upon the internet, making it a little more difficult for our case. Thirdly, the court itself did, in fact, show
they're talking about. He did mention it
when showcasing responses, the prejudice of the jury, in which that was 2 of the 4 times in which the court had to say that the jury must remain impartial. 4, throughout the entire proceedings, and I presume this will not change through the next 5 counts, the court has, because of its inability and because of the nature of the court itself and the fact that we are online, both the prosecution and the defense have been denied voir dire, which of course is the ability to select the jury and interview the jury to make sure that it is impartial. This is in violation of the 6th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America.
Wow.
And it is grounds for dismissal. And so I would like the judge to consider that
to try to get the case dismissed.
When all of this
because
is over,
all
and
of
that
us in the jury
this
cannot be
retaken
deposed.
up at Comic-Con,
Wow.
when both the prosecution and the defense can actually select an impartial jury.
I'll take it under advisement. Advisement. We're trying to find a location where we might be able to have the final episode and the final verdict live at San Diego Comic-Con. That is something that's in the works. That may or may not happen. I can't promise right now.
Yeah, my location is not available, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well,
you can fit everybody in your house, Alan.
I actually might know a guy. Talk to me after, Chris.
Okay, we'll talk after.
I guess.
By the way, I want to remind the jury that droids are not allowed to render a verdict in this trial.
No bots allowed.
What?
The only discrimination was in the Star Wars universe, according to George Lucas, actually.
Right.
What I will say is this: I think it's been a great back and forth, and I thank the defendants for. This is called tact. I think there is a lot of negative energy around Star Wars right now. And I think that's directly the fault of Lucasfilm.
I know,
I think they
R2.
are the ones that caused this. We've been speaking a lot about malice. That's
Ooh,
what
Mr. Blackwood.
That's
Nope.
what the defense is focused on. The semantics over malice, which is in the charge. Was there intent to damage? Was there intent to do harm? I would argue yes. I think we showed sufficient evidence in the beginning, especially with some of these Dave Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy videos that are out there, acknowledging that we need to change Star Wars. But also acknowledging at the same time, we're not going to cater to men. In fact, what was happening, they may have hoped to grow the overall brand. They may have hoped the end result would be better off for them in the end by pushing away some of their fans, which is absolutely what they did. But in reality, they admitted that they were not going to cater to men, the biggest portion of their fan base. As defense so ironically pointed out at one point during our open debate, Mr. Rubio looked at the panel, and I don't know how he ignored Mr. Ng. I don't know how he missed him, but he said it's a panel of a bunch of white men speaking here. I don't really find that ironic, because I think we have a large portion of people that are very, very passionate about Star Wars. The fact that the people that are most passionate about Star Wars were here to argue for it, either for or against, happen to be men and happen to be mostly white. I don't think that that's like a coincidence. I think that that's the passionate part of the fan base, and it's the one that specifically Disney and Lucasfilm refused to cater to and told everyone that they weren't going to cater to them.
What about
Regardless
the
if they
Star
thought
Wars
they could
penguins,
make up for it
though?
on the back end by getting more women to watch or anything, they did intentionally do harm to that existing fan base. That's the reality in my
Feel
mind,
so
and
left
I think
out.
in the mind of the good people of the jury. When it comes to these diverse stories, yeah, absolutely. There's always been, well, I don't know about always, but there's been black
Obi
people in Star
Penguin
Wars
Kenobi,
for a
baby!
long,
You
long
know it.
time. People weren't sitting there getting upset. They weren't sending Billy D. Williams, death
These
threats
are
and things
not
like this,
the
right?
droids you're looking
there may have been
for.
one or two outliers here and there. For the most part, that's
This
just
is
simply
not
the
the
case.
cheese
It wasn't
you
the case for
will
Moses
eat.
Ingram
You'll
either.
hand
People
it
were mad
over
that she was a
to
bad
the
character. But when it comes to what people are upset about, the story, I think, and so many other people think, that the reason why the story is suffering is because they're more focused on these checkboxes. They're more focused on diversity. They're more focused on pushing an agenda than they actually are about telling a good story. Now, I think
I agree
they
with that
thought, I
completely.
think Disney thought, with all their ego, I
They're-
think they all
they're-
thought
it's
that
clear that
they
their
could just slap
intention
Star
is
Wars
not-
on something and it'd make
their
billions of
focus
dollars.
is not
You
on
know
the
what?
story as much as it
It worked
is
for a little while
their agenda.
until people realized that
And I
this
think
isn't
that's
their
the
Star
problem.
Wars anymore.
That's the really
And
overall
now
problem.
they are finally
Not
seeing
just
the
with Star
ramifications
Wars,
of
but
that.
with
They are
every
realizing that
current
this
IP
is
out
what
there
we
in
have done to
Hollywood.
the Star Wars brand. We pushed all these people who were fans away. We admitted it. We told them they were going to do it. We laughed in their face like Dave Filoni. But that's what they did. And now they're sitting there, and all they have left is their storytelling ability. They don't have that big brand, that big excitement about Star Wars anymore, and that is why they're failing. And that is why Disney murdered Star Wars with all of these things, including Count 4, the malicious introduction of current-day identity politics. Thank you, Your Honor.
The prosecution rest. I love that.
Any word from the defense? We have chats that are directed towards specific people. I'd like to get to those. There's not very many.
No, sir.
Is that all right? Or
I'm okay, Your Honor.
Okay.
Doctor? Okay.
Okay. Real quick, Ryan is on point as always, man. Cheers to the panel, says Jay Tapia. Goes on to say Ryan/Brian24 for 199.
I'll be your VP, brother.
Angry Yeti TV for 2. Ryan is my spirit animal. William Sleeper for 499. Mr. Rubio,
These are gonna
I
be
hate
questions
what Lucasfilm
to the
have
actual,
done, like Amazon and Lord of the Rings, yet
court
in
members.
both Finn and Disa are some of the more likable new characters, but yeah, racist. I think he's being sarcastic.
I think Mr. Sleeper would be surprised that I do agree with him to some extent. But my job is to argue the defense.
So there you go. Disney Lucasfilm meant harm to existing characters, says Just Nova 1138 for 199. Jorge Barracuda for 5. Me, leave real world politics out of Star Wars. Also me. Nancy Pelosi equals Kathy Kennedy.
Nancy Pelosi is equal to Potato Kennedy.
Oteo Threat Level 2 has been a member for 2 months, says Hail
Let's see here.
Arcade
Is this the end
Outpost.
of it?
He is a beast. Film Threat is awesome. I am loving this.
You can
Frank.
find me on the picket lines, either Disney or Warner Brothers or.
Okay, I think that's it. The rest are all just super chats. Once again, that was created by Chris Gore at Film Threat. Link is to the original videos in my description, as well as to their YouTube channel. Yeah, this was a little bit longer one today. I think some of that's because I also stopped a couple times, but it was all good stuff. This was almost a 2.5 hour video anyway. And I kind of wanted to try to see if I can get it all done in one day so that next week we can go on with be count 5. If all possible, I don't really want to have to break them up. I like to try to stay at the 2 hour mark, but obviously we went over a little bit today for that. But nevertheless, I thought a lot of this was kind of good. Seeing both sides of the argument. Be here or be a trapezoid. Yes, exactly. Or if you don't like trapezoids, you can always go to be a parallelogram. And all you ones out there that want to be rhombuses, I just don't know about you. You're a little bit weird. Of course, then again, I'm weird too. Anyway, I'm so glad that you took the opportunity to kind of come and watch and maybe lurk or actually watch this video after the live stream. Nevertheless, I think it's kind of cool that I've gotten the opportunity to kind of watch all this stuff because I didn't get a chance to when Film Threat was doing this live. And that's kind of the whole point of why I wanted to do this, because I thought I might as well just stream it while I'm doing it. And gives me a chance to kind of see both sides of this. I don't want to see the whole story because I kind of already know how the verdict ends. I did catch that live stream, but I kind of wanted to see leading up to that. And I'm not going to spoil that because we will watch that as well at the end of all this. But nevertheless, I definitely would welcome any thoughts or ideas you have down in the comments below. Hit me up with what those are and so forth. If you think whether or not the prosecution killed it today, or if you thought the defense was good today. Personally, I think the prosecution was a little bit more on point today than the prosecution. Than the defense was. I know a couple weeks ago, I felt the defense was pretty strong. Not so much today. Star Wars wearing a red shirt. He's dead, Jim. Exactly. And basically at this point, Disney Star Wars has been dead for a long time, and all they're just kind of doing is pushing the dead corpse around, which is really kind of sad because I have been a Star Wars penguin all my life. I remember when my penguin parents took me to go see Star Wars when it came out in the theaters. It was an experience. So much so that every single time there was a new Star Wars movie came out, our family of penguins, our good old Waddle, got together and we went to the movies to see it together. It was actually an event, kind of like a holiday thing for us. And I'm sure I'm not the only family out there that kind of did this stuff too. But it's just, to me, it bothers me to see the state of all my favorite lovable IPs out there. I just hope that eventually somebody gets a clue and just brings stuff back to good immersive stories, and that the writing improves and the showrunner realizes that they have to put this agenda in there. They can do it other ways other than just being up in front of you and preaching at you, which takes you out of the story. Because there's ways to do all that in the story writing. And to me, it makes it feel like they're not very imaginative. That they're just, the writers are just, meh. Anyway, enough rambling on by this little penguin. And we will be picking up again this next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 2 p.m. Eastern on this channel for Penguin Thoughts, the Film Threats rewatch of Star Wars on Trial. We'll be picking up with Count 5, which Count 5 next week is the offense of demystifying the lore. So there you go. That's what they're going to be discussing next week. Anyway, as always, I'm the crazy little geeky Star Wars penguin, and I'm out of here. I'm going to go grab me some more iced coffee or something, and maybe even go track down a crazy fish and have a lightsaber duel. Who knows? Anyway, may the fish be with you, and you all have a good one. Catch you later. Later, peeps.